That's not I don't
Please stand and join us in the pledge.
To the flag of these United States of America, and to the Constitution which founded our republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I call the meeting to order, show all council members are in attendance, and I would entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve with removal of 8D.
Second. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Tonight we have 3 public hearings. If you'd like to address the council in regards to any of these, please step forward to the microphone and give your name and address for the record. Now it's time and place for a public hearing in regards to Resolution 25-127. This resolution changes the status of Richard Wade from Council Bluffs, City Attorney. No, other side of the page, sorry. Jackson. Now it's time and place for a public hearing in regards to Ordinance 6645, an ordinance to amend the zoning map adopted by reference to Section 15.27.020 by appending a PR2 planned residential overlay on property which is legally described as the west 110 feet of Lot 1, Block 5. Park Addition is defined in Chapter 15.28. Its common location, 1003 High Street. It's approved publication on.
Yes,
Any written protest received?
none received.
Anyone wishing to address the council in regards to this matter?
Good evening. Are you ready?
We are.
Name and address.
Carol.
Gabrielle Dowdy, 1003 High Street. I am the director of the upper room who would like to take this PR plan and ask you for your favor. I know I have a lot to describe our program. We're not a shelter, we are a group home. And it is scary when you start to think about trafficking and all the dangers that come in with that. And in my experience, we're here for that longevity after they have taken the steps for their healing journey. It's not in the emergency cases. With that, we have a three-level program. One is 6 months, one is 1 year, and one is a 2-year program. With the zoning in the house as it is right now, we have up to 5 people, 1 being staff, 4 being clients. That would include women and or children or a variation of that. I understand that the parking is an issue, especially off-street parking. Most clients don't have a car until they're close to graduating the program, and so We have allotted the space for a staff car and potentially one client car.
You don't have to continue to hold it up, you said press once, just say
Oh,
thank you.
thank you.
You hit the finger, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, you're good.
It is a sober living house. They have to be sober for 30 to 60 days. And then we do have programming which encourages them to take the next steps into their healing journey as well as steps into new life. Again, we understand that it is scary, and so our intake process is very lengthy. We do a phone screening, an in-person interview, background check. We require documents stating that they are not a harm to themselves or others, as well as a statement saying that they do not have any communicable diseases. We do work closely with resources in town, so we are advocating for their mental health, their sobriety, their spiritual health, and their physical health. Again, this includes children. Making sure there's no ID. We are open 24/7, 365 days a year. Again, staff on site for overnight. We do have 2 staff members, hopefully by the end of the year, according to the opening of the home. We are currently not open. It's just myself and my husband in the house that work from the house. The owner is from Denver, Colorado, but my husband and I have relocated from Denver to Iowa to follow family, and we fell in love with this community. So we are here to support and offer a safe haven. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to address the council? And Carol, can you give me your name and address for the record? Thank you.
Carolyn Storm.
Ready to go? Okay, Carolyn Storm, 921 High Street, and obviously I'm opposing this. And I have typed up, and Linda, feel free to prove, because I already saw some errors. So I would just like to submit these so that you can go ahead. I know we have a lot going on tonight, so you can read through how we feel.
Motion to receive and file.
Second, receive and file. And Carolyn, they'll be voting before they get a chance to read through it, so if you want to give some comments, if you don't, you don't have to. On this, they'll vote right.
I was in understanding it was 3.
Well, but they're going to be voting the second one before we move on to the next item, so it will likely have a third reading, but if you want to say anything, again, they won't read this until they vote the second time. There will be a third time later.
There's a couple instances of folks.
It takes 3 meetings. This is the second one, and it gets 3 votes. So they voted last time to move it to the public hearing. If they vote it down, it won't go any further than tonight, but if they move it on, there'll be one more reading in 2 weeks. So you're good if we just read it. Yeah, all right. Voted.
Amanda can cover it.
All right. Sounds good. Amanda, name and address, please.
My name is Amber Miller, and I live at 1009 High Street, which is the house that is on the south side of 1003. And if you don't mind, I just wrote down my thoughts.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and read them too. So, I say that as a High Street resident, I'm opposed to the establishment of this type of organization at 1003 High Street for the following reasons. Firstly, I do not think that a historic neighborhood is appropriate for this kind of nonprofit organization. The neighborhood has been slowly but lovingly restored over many years by local residents, and also has been significantly invested in by the 712. It's a work in progress, but I do think that putting a group home or a shelter or a safe house into this neighborhood would be harmful to the culture of our neighborhood, and it has already introduced strife into what was an otherwise peaceful environment. I have seen images of the parent organization that this nonprofit is stemming from, based out of Arvada, Colorado. The organization seems to be rather unkempt, and I fear that this daughter organization will follow a similar pattern of neglect. Second, I worry that this particular nonprofit does not have the financial means or experience to safely execute their proposal. None of the administration nor the directors seem to have any kind of professional experience when it comes to dealing with the quote, and tough cases, end quote, that they propose to bring into our neighborhood. I worry that they will bring troubled individuals and perhaps by extension their friends, family, or acquaintances, people who need serious professional help, into an undersized group home, thereby creating a volatile situation which could jeopardize the safety of myself or my children. And third, this nonprofit is not transparent. So they don't seem to have an EIN, nor be an independent 501c3. They say that they are a daughter of the organization called Shannon's Hope in Arvada, Colorado, but that organization does not list any subsidiaries on its activities going back to 2019. Shannon's Hope seems to be struggling financially. They have several hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. They're operating annually at a deficit. This is not uncommon for a nonprofit organization, but it is worrying to me because they will be operating next door. So I'm not saying that this is a predatory nonprofit organization, that they're preying upon a vulnerable population, but I do think that the lack of transparency combined with the reviews of the organization, which I have printed out and brought here, is very concerning. So if you don't mind, I can read off just a couple of reviews from the Colorado organization. This is from Chattel Hardwick. He says, women often complain about rats. I know someone in the program and they told me about mice eating rubber nipples off of her baby bottles, the crazy rules to live in this place. If any normal person was able to look at the handbook, they would recognize that this is a money trap. You pay rent, fine, but you can't work between certain hours basically. You are stuck. Again, there's several saying they won't help you, they won't call back, this is a private residence. And then the last one here reads from Trina Geyer, they need to have a certified staff to deal with the seriousness of certain types of residents. Make it one house mothers only or single women, have realistic expectations, better intake process, drug tests upon moving in to assure sobriety. Staff should be more aware and they need to understand that not everyone parents the same. I don't recommend going there. It's worse than prison, a halfway house, not ideal unless you are desperate. So, like Carolyn, I have printed out the reviews. I printed out the L schedule from the 990 for the Shannon's Hope organization in Arvada, Colorado. So you can see some of the financial details, which are also available on GuideStar and ProPublica. So thank you.
Any questions for Amber? All right, well, thank you.
Motion to receive and vote.
Second.
Yeah, motion, motion to receive and file. All those in favor, signify by aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Is there a motion from the council? Yeah, anybody else want to speak?
Pastor Joseph Fall from Crossroads Church, Council Bluffs, Mayor, City Council. The upper room, women's house, is a ministry that Crossroads Church fully endorses and supports financially. This is not just another business or even a shelter. This is a ministry house that is all about rescuing, reforming, and rehabilitating women. After rehabilitating them, our effort will be to send them back into the community, independent, confident, responsible, and rehabilitated. Women, this is for women who have fell into great misfortune, adversity, the result of broken homes, maybe even bad choices, and some simply bad love. The Bible says in James 1:27 that pure and genuine religion in the sight of God and the Father means caring for orphans and widows in their distress, and that is the ultimate goal of this ministry house. It seeks to make a difference in the lives of these women, their children, and in essence will make a difference in our city and make our city a better place. As you represent our city, we know that you love and care for our city. You want to improve the lives of the people of our city, so I ask you to truly consider this. We're talking about 20 square foot. Variances are always amended, rules are always amended, so we ask you to do that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you. Anybody else? Is there a motion from the council?
Motion to deny.
Second. Is there a discussion?
Well, there's obviously staff recommendation from planning and zoning is to deny the PR overlay. There's several opposition in the neighborhood against it. I would tell you, I don't think I'm against your mission, and I think your intake process being that they're sober before they come to the house is good. I would ask you to work with staff to see if there's another place in town that would work for this. And then I would, Heidi, if you'd like, Heidi, right? If you'd like to come back up and talk about some of the things that were said and just, is this based off what's happening in Arvada, Colorado? I mean, you didn't say anything about that, right? So I just want to make sure that I'm not saying anything wrong. I just want to, are those statements true? Is it based off what's going on in Arvada, Colorado?
So in Arvada, Colorado, that is our parent company. I do have the 501c3 paperwork that allows us to run a 501c3 in Iowa. Budgets are always a budget, and you're always going to get a negative review at some point. You know, 100% effectiveness is not always doable depending on the issues. But we've had great success, about 80% where women and children are back into society. There's also some great reviews online. But our budget is, we are privately funded. We have monthly donors, fundraisers, church backings, different things like that. I have an income from Denver, but I live here, so I pay state taxes here. And then anything else that we get is just more into that. Yes, we do pay or have a program fee of $400 per person, but we work on their income as they start working back in the workforce.
And are you operating today out of the house?
No, I work out of the house just myself, but we have no clients.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a chance to talk about the claims that were made up here today, so thank you. I am, like I said, I think you should work with staff to maybe look at somewhere else that this could be operated, but in the neighborhood and as it sits today, I'm not in favor of it.
This is greatly needed in our community. We do need halfway houses and housing for people that are trying to get better off of addiction, especially women. We don't have enough to help our women clientele. This is just a situation where we're not going to be able to afford it where it sits due to the variances. So that's where I'm at. I fully support mental health and sobriety. So.
I agree, Steve. We had Brandy in earlier from New Vision's Homeless Services and talked about the need for assisting women and families here. Based off the staff recommendation, though, you know, our zoning ordinance is not going to allow for anybody to stay there past that 90 days. They also talked about, it says in the notes that they talked to you about going to an R3. But you didn't want to go that route. So like Roger, I would say that we want to go back and work. You wanted to go with the PR2 instead of the R3 overlay. And so just based off of the sizing, the concerns about the board and lodging, rooming in the house, I agree. I don't think right now we're going to be able to go forward with our current zoning that's in our laws.
Anybody else? Thank you very much. Additional comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and that is good enough. Now it's time and place for a public hearing regarding Resolution 25-123. This resolution approves the plans and specifications in connection with the Southwest Pump Station Track Rack Rehabilitation Project Public Order 25-17. This approved publication on file.
Yes, it is.
Any written protests received?
None received.
Anyone wishing to address the council in regards to this matter? Seeing none, is there a motion from the council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there discussion?
This was included in our FY25 CIP. It has a budget in there. Obviously, this is dealing with the screening of solids and debris and our wastewater treatment. Something we desperately need.
Well, it's been in use since '89, so it's outlived its useful life. And replacement.
Put in the storm sewer system, collects the garbage that flows into the city.
Yeah, solids and debris.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Now it's time and place for a public hearing regarding Resolution 25-124. This resolution supports the city's application to the Iowa Economic Development Authority, IEDA, for the Community Development Department Block Grant COVID CBGB or CDBG-CB grant funding, and that the mayor is hereby authorized and directed to submit an application to Iowa Economic Development Authority for Community Development Block Grant COVID money funding and execute any related contracts with the Iowa Department of Economic Development upon order. This proof of publication on file.
Yes, it is.
Any written protests received?
None received.
Anyone wishing to address the council in regards to this matter? Seeing none, is there a motion from the council?
Motion to approve.
Sorry. Is there discussion?
Yeah, great.
Both these entities are vital to this community, but being in the nonprofit world for as long as I have been, my hesitation on grants like this is generally when you put it into operating costs, it covers the bulk, covers salaries. And I know salaries, you need to employ people. What I would like to see with these monies is less on salaries and more on the deliverables, helping the clientele, the people that they serve, and less on paying the employees out of this. I feel like there's other pots. Operating costs is such a broad topic, you can use it any and everywhere you want. I just strike caution to this amount of money for it. Again, I think both of these entities are vital to this community, but I would just like to not see it go to operating costs.
After the study session earlier, while I do agree with some of your statements, it was conveyed to us by both the chief of police and the fire chief that some of the staffing was actually a vital safety aspect for some of our officers of both those departments. And not a request, but it's very helpful to them and something that they saw as vital to them being able to continue to service the folks here in their day-to-day. Again, I can see how having it open-ended like that is problematic, but I think the overall funding of that, I believe, is for the greater good and the greater public safety and safety of our staff as fire and police.
We called it an operational grant. I don't know if that necessarily is what it is for, but that's how they termed it. It was a community development block grant for operation. Maybe just be that's what it is for.
Yeah, I talked with Brandy and talked to the study session. I think the homeless problem in our community is one of the biggest we are facing. I don't have the answer. It's a tough problem. It's mental health, it's drugs, it's a ton of different things. I just think that more money at something that isn't working isn't going to solve the problem. And so I can't support this until we make some significant changes, and I'm not saying I know what those changes are. I don't have the answer. But what we're doing today, I don't feel is working. And so I can't support this as is. I think Micah House and New Visions they for sure do some good things in our community. But until some things change, I think, we have people, citizens, businesses in town that reach out to, I'm sure all of us, that are, potentially looking at leaving town, not being in our community anymore, which isn't all on New Visions or Micah House. The rules that we talked about today, the state legislature has changed some things a long time ago. But I can't support, I know it's not coming out of the city's budget, it's a state grant, but I just can't support throwing more money at a problem that I don't think we're solving any issues today.
I'm going to disagree with you there. As leaders and as a community, we have to represent everybody in our community, and that means even those that are homeless. And if it takes a grant from the state, which the state has been cutting us short for years and years and years, at one time we had only 46 mental health beds available in the state of Iowa, public mental health beds. And we can't have a castaway set of people. In other words, there's no money in.
This money isn't going to more mental health beds, Steve. So I guess
it's going to take more than just mental health beds.
Agreed.
It's going to take people to work with them. I deal with this on a daily basis, and I'm going to tell you this, they're difficult to deal with. Absolutely 100% difficult to deal with. And I have spent this much out of my own personal pocket plus to deal with one child.
I understand.
So how can you say we can't afford
I didn't say we couldn't.
But I think, Jeff,
or spend the money towards these people?
I think Justin maybe shed a little light on it.
So, I'm sorry, Roger, I didn't know this was going to be an issue, to be honest.
I just didn't know the salaries part because we already know the salaries down there. So
Yeah, I want to address that in particular. So
that's a big part.
probably about, I'm going to say 6 months ago, we were getting a lot of complaints. We were having a ton of problems at New Visions. And some of those problems are derived by what Sienna Francis House did across the river, where Sienna Francis House has armed security there. People with guns that aren't law enforcement officers, armed security. They have 24-hour surveillance. They have a guy in a room, actually multiple people in a room, just like a 911 center, they contract this, that watches the entire campus all the time. And all they do is call the armed security guy, and then they call law enforcement. And they've had a lot of problems over there. They clean a lot of stuff up. We were having a ton of problems at night with no staff. And Randy did not have it in her budget to staff that facility 24 hours. The majority of our problems there is because there's no responsible individual there at night. It's literally New Jack City to go in there. And there's 100 people sleeping in a room with the lights off, and EMS and fire and police are responding there, and we don't know who's in there, and some of them aren't very happy to see us. And so we went to Brandy and said, hey, you got to make some changes.
So who calls 911 if there's a problem?
The problem with it is they're calling 911. This was another issue we addressed. I have a whole list of the things I went over with her that we basically told Brandy, either you come our way on these things, or I'll take it to the council, because it can't continue. Somebody's going to get hurt. We're having some crimes down there that are, well, we literally, when we talk to people on the HOT program, I've been out there multiple times, some of those people on the river live at the river because they don't want to go to the shelter. Because at night, it's chaos. We're going down there on calls in the mid-morning, and the people in there are like, yeah, we're at a party all night. They're smoking meth in the facility. There's no responsible people there. there. So this money was, part of it is to pay for 24-hour people, and to get cameras, and to secure the building, the vestibule, so that everyone has to intake in, and everyone gets the list of rules. And we went down the rules with them from All Care. We put some pressure with All Care, saying, hey, we need you guys to actually do your mission there. We worked with Methodist, I think it's Methodist, to get nurses there, or nursing students there, to work with people so that they would quit processing. We were doing a lot of calls down there that is basically people short on their meds. And you're dealing with people that are troubled. You know, they lose their meds, they're living on the street, and now they're calling 911 for us to transport them, because really all they need, they're having difficulty breathing because they don't have their albuterol, and they have COPD. Stuff like that, we are literally pretty deep, and I think the police chief will verify this.
I don't think this is going to change that, though.
We need staff down there, 24 hours a day. As far as I'm concerned, the council should demand it. And if this is how they're going to pay for it for a while, then we got to do something to get this in check.
I think the council should make it we should only allow high barrier shelters. That's what I think we should.
Well, I can tell you that Brandy is finally, I think, and I don't want to speak for her, she's not here, but she understands that there has to be rules. And that
That's
we've
not
gotten
what
too
she has
far.
vacated in the past, I can tell you that.
Well, I'm telling you, after multiple conversations with her for the last 6 months, she understands that she's got a problem and needs to be corrected.
There needs to be rules, but if they're not at the shelter, then they're out on the streets, and they're messing with businesses, they're messing with homes, they're in people's backyards, they're in the alleys,
So
they're on
Roger,
the
a piece of
walking.
this is that if you have basically, let's say, a homeless person supervisor, somebody who's staying down there, but at night we're going to call them the supervisor. We're putting that person at pretty great risk to call us if there's a problem. I mean, I think the police chief will agree, like, that's a lot of responsibility to put on somebody who's not paid staff, that's just coming out of homelessness themselves, and they're volunteering down there. And Brandy has a big heart. She wants, and we had conversations with her, like, we're off mission. We are not on mission. We need to get some of these people cycled out and into housing. We actually had people that were denying housing because they like it there, because every human wants a community. And if you go down the river, you'll see it.
I've been down there, I walked
there's
over
people
there.
that
What
is
is the
their
outreach
community.
gentleman that did it?
And
That was on.
New Visions has become some people's community. The fact of the matter is Brandy's finally at a point where she's saying, no, you gotta go. You either go and get placed or you're out of here. And I think that's I think we have her in a good place to be, and I'll let the police chief elaborate on the
Which is what they do in Des Moines.
We
You stay there for X number of days and then you're out.
And so that's where we've been running into problems, that and no supervision at night. That's where we're having huge issues, because what's happening is there's no rules, and there's nobody there to enforce rules. And so we wanted some type of security intake where they get the ground rules. Like
But
these are the rules.
if they're drunk or high on meth or any of that, they're not gonna search them. She told me that. They're gonna let them in anyway. That's the issue. So whoever they have staff that still has to call the police or fire. That's all
I
I
understand,
understand.
but we don't have any staff there. There's nobody there at night.
I understand. So if they put staff, they're still gonna call you. That's where I don't.
100%, we're gonna deal with the problem. That's the problem. We're not dealing with the problem because at night they're down there partying all night and then they call. And there's problems down there and you're expecting somebody who's just out of homelessness themselves to rat out somebody else. The other piece of that was we want the entire facility camera on our camera system. There's no right to privacy there. It's a shelter. We want the inside of the building and the outside of the building camera. And we want that as part of, I don't know if this is part of the grant she's paying for that, but we're demanding that of her. Because our biggest problem is, and we need somebody to watch those cameras. And I don't know how she does that, if she contracts somebody to do it. It's almost like running a large-scale emergency. You have somebody in command that's kind of the eye in the sky, and they call out the problem, they get law enforcement. And then what will happen is, those troublemakers will either end up where they're supposed to be, or they'll leave. And that's what we're at. We want to solve the problem of the shelter.
So that's not really what she said today. I mean, you were conveying different things than what she said. She said she's hiring 3 staff.
Those are the overnight staff.
Well, some of that's, effectively the place turns into Andersonville after dark, right?
Yes.
And so if there's no one there to quash that or to say, hey, I need police assistance or whatever, that's what she was saying. She's saying, hey, I'm hired someone for this, this, and this, because those jobs have to be filled. Otherwise, we got one cruiser showing up with 2 or 3 guys that roll into 100 deep
The other thing is, we don't know the issue, Roger, so they're calling from 911 only phones inside the shelter, and there's no responsible adult to get us there. So they could have somebody stabbed in the back of the place, and somebody called, and that person's now fled because they don't want anything to do with it, and we're wandering through a facility with no escort and not really understanding where we're going to where the patient is because there's no staff there.
And I'd go back to Brandy's comments. To Brandy's comments earlier, and I understand money's not gonna fix everything, right? But homeless is a problem across our nation, across the world. So just to say we need to fix it, we're gonna have to work as a community together. And Brandy made the point that during COVID, she got the extra funds and she was able to take the numbers from 900 plus down to 450. So the money does help the situation. It's not the end all be all. We're always gonna have those outskirt people that, you know, should not be at the homeless shelter. They should be at a bed somewhere in a facility somewhere. But if we can help, I mean, just some of the statistics real quick, Chief, that Randy mentioned this afternoon is emergency shelters, there was 910 unique individuals. 73% of those are from Council Bluffs. So it's not like the people are coming from the river or from an outsource, they're Council Bluffs people. And she was able to get 261 of those. That's a 29% success rate into permanent housing. And then on the street outreach, there was 446 enrolled into the program, 52% of those being women, so over 220, and 184 of those were put into permanent housing. That's a 41% success rate. Money helps the situation, so we can get those people that are one paycheck away or one bad decision away back on the right course, so then we can focus our attention on those that need the additional resources. So that's why I'm in favor of this. Go ahead, Chief.
Just one quick comment on Councilman Peterson's initial concern of, in a nonprofit world, that funds go more towards, deliverable services than staffing concerns. I think that's been the case at New Visions, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way about Brandy's way of managing her budget. I think there's been so much goodwill and so much pouring of funds into services that there hasn't been as much attention paid to the staffing, logistics, all the security concerns that Chief James just articulated. These funds would really enable us to run a safer, more productive facility. We've been meeting with Brandy and her staff over the course of the last few weeks, planning out all of these little logistical tweaks that will help us keep the place safer, cleaner, etc. So while it seems that, the funds going to personnel might, not be the preferred course, I think here it's totally appropriate because we sent our folks from the HOP team to Des Moines to see the CIS facility, see how they're doing it there in terms of staffing, and as Chief James mentioned, there's 24-hour staffing, there's oversight. So I think there are some necessary personal services costs that have to go in that maybe should have been there all along, but I'm not criticizing. And we've been working very closely with Brandy and her staff as we kind of collaboratively develop what makes the best sense to have a safe, stable facility where people's needs can still be met.
And that's good to see, because for years I sat on the Community Homeless Task Force and we did nothing. We spun our wheels and threw out hypotheticals and nothing worked. You two coming in here, you unlifted the veil. There's a pretty picture painted down there of roses and daisies for when you get the presentation. What the public doesn't get is the problems. Working down there, I saw the problems. This is the message that needs to be spread. I'm not worried about salaries for the program staff that delivers the middle down. It's top up, because it does filter up sometimes. I'm all for the security. I'm all for now the transparency. What is actually going on down there? I know they're doing good, but there's a lot more stuff going on there that, and I'm glad there's a room full of people that you guys don't know what you know. But by you going down there and demanding safety, I mean, that's an easier pill to swallow. And then how we track this thing to make sure it's done that way, because this money might not come down the pipe again. And if you guys are having that problem, I can support that. And I can support program staff. It's the high up. Because we all know in that nonprofit world, the high ups get theirs more times than not. I'm for the middle of the road, program staff that deliver the nuts and bolts. That's what I meant when I'm talking about salaries. So I want to be clear on that, but I appreciate both of you guys speaking to this because it does.
All this is taxpayer money, it's not the local taxpayer money, it's federal money that flows through the state of Iowa Community Development Block Grant.
Yeah, and as I said, I think there's some good things going on, and what you're saying, I hope it works. I'm not opposed to the council voting for it, I just can't support it with where it's at, and that's okay, I guess, for me.
If it don't work, I promise you I'll be back, and we'll put some,
Well, I guess we put a lot of money and it hasn't worked, so I have no, you know what I mean, the track record shows it's not gonna work,
Well, this
in my opinion.
This
I hope it
started
does.
with a conversation, where I called Dick, because I was like, I'm fed up.
Yeah.
And we went down there, we had a good conversation, we started working with Brandy, we made some demands that I didn't think she was gonna accept. I mean, most people wouldn't like law enforcement having camera coverage. It will save her time, the other piece of that is, it helps them, it's efficient. If we do it through our milestone system, then like, we can help if the camera's down or something, and we have law enforcement officers that are very good with the milestone system. So I thought this is the most efficient way we could use this money, along with some staffing. And I have the same exact concerns that you guys do. I 100% agree with what Chris is saying, but the fact is, we're trying to get that under control, that I think then will help control some of the other stuff we're seeing in the city. It's a big problem. I told you guys earlier, Chris wasn't here, but I mean, 30% of I see taxpayers or citizens saying how the city's not doing anything about the homeless population. I told the mayor in a conversation, he asked me what I did on something, and I said, well, I bet you 30% of my time is involved in some meeting that has to do with the community and the homeless population, trying to fix this problem, but it's a far bigger problem than the city can fix.
I'll tell you, I hope, and I don't know when this money gets awarded, we're applying for the grant. I hope in 6 months or a year, you can say, it really worked and Roger was wrong and I'll eat crow, like, no problem doing it. I hope it does. Just so you know.
And to Chris's point, I mean, if we do get awarded the money, we need to talk about the deliverables and how do we track this and calls to 911 being down and we can, I'm sure Brandy will work with us about how to track some deliverables to make everybody feel.
I've met with Randy multiple times, as I said, I was on the river with the outreach people, I walked for miles. And I don't want you to think I'm insensitive. Steve, I know, we've talked about this many times.
And the thing is we had these things and discussions when we wanted to open just a warming center that wasn't gonna cost the city any money.
I understand.
And out of that whole time that center's been open, they've moved people to housing almost every year. And the last time they came here, you gave them a blanket permit, and it's because it's working.
For the warming shelter, yes, I did, yeah.
Yes, that is invested. They were investing into people that were on the verge of being street homelessness and the street homelessness, and it was working there. And so that's what I want to put out there. Is I know you care about people.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, as a society in a whole, we have made a castaway group of people. There's no money in caring for them. There's no money in the medical profession. It's hard to get psychiatrists and psychologists. You have to wait months to get in to see them. And in the meantime, they don't get their medicines. They end up in bad situations. And we cannot, as leaders, allow a caste system to take place. There's not a person that I know, unless they're a criminal, straight up criminal, that wants to cognitively live on the streets.
I understand.
They just don't have the cognitive ability to get off of it.
I understand. Like I
And
said,
that's where I'm at.
I hope it works. I do.
So, quick side note, it doesn't, she did also mention that the warming center was one of the things that was on the chopping block due to funding. And I think we all agreed that facility and that program actually did work out. So that was part of her talk earlier today when we asked about it, aside from these staff.
Do we have a motion? We did. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Madam Clerk.
Ordinances on first reading. Ordinance 6647 to amend Chapter 3.62 Solicitors of the 2020 Municipal Code by amending Chapter 3.62.020 Definitions Solicitors. Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Ordinance 6648, ordinance adopting the 2025 municipal code of Council Bluffs, Iowa.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there a discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Ordinance is on second reading, ordinance 6646, to amend Title IX traffic on the 2020 municipal code by amending Chapter 9.72.357, open containers in motor vehicles to differentiate between the driver and the passenger.
Motion approved.
Second.
Is there a discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Motion to waive third.
Second.
Is there a discussion on the motion to waive? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Resolution 25-125, resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Metropolitan Area Planning Agency in support of the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there a discussion? This is Safe Streets Action Plan, trying to ensure pedestrian safety throughout the city. Federal funding to help that process. Additional discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Resolution 25-126, resolution approving the appointment of Melina Dobson as a city attorney effective May 12, 2025.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Resolution 25-127, resolution changing the status of Richard Wade from the Council Bluffs City Attorney to Attorney of Council for the City of Council Bluffs.
Did we already do this?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there a discussion?
Just again, Dick, thank you for all your time, energy, years. We appreciate you and everything that you've done.
Again, thank you to all of our applicants. Thank you to Joe and Roger for sitting on the committee to pick our new city attorney, and we wish you nothing but the best of luck.
Additional discussion?
Same.
Same comments. That 40 years is a long while. We appreciate your efforts over time. We're going to miss your wealth of knowledge and the ability of you to sit back and say, I believe the intent at the time was. That is one piece that will not go on, though you're on the hook, it sounds like, for another few months yet, a short period to try and transfer all that knowledge to the new staff. I hope that in some capacity we'll be able to reach out if need be, and as the years go by to gain some of that as perhaps some sort of expert historical historical expert of Council Bluffs, something of that nature. So again, thank you, Dave.
Previous resolution, congrats to Mimi, she's here.
Yes,
And her family's here with her, so congrats.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Resolution 25-129, resolution to reclassify city-owned property as transitional reserve.
We skipped that.
That
We removed that. We
was
removed
the one that we were.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Delete this.
You're
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. We're good. Okay.
You're right.
Yep. Resolution 25-129, resolution to reclassify city-owned property as transitional preserve with the intention of pursuing development by one or more parties.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
So I know a lot of you are here tonight. We want to discuss this, talk to the city council about what your thoughts are. We want to hear what your thoughts are, but we want it to be civil discourse. It doesn't do anybody good to get emotional. Just tell us what your thoughts are. We're trying to organize it. So we're going to start with those in favor. We asked them to speak first, and then we'll follow with those against, because it would appear that many against are here as well. So if you are in favor, please step forward to the microphone, give your name and address for the record.
And this is not a public hearing, so everybody gets 5 minutes, not 10.
Now, public hearing, everybody gets 10 minutes. This is not a public hearing, it's a resolution. So.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Chris LaFurla, 17582 Garrett Circle, Council Bluffs. I serve as president and CEO of the Council Bluffs Chamber of Commerce, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of our board of directors, staff, and the many local businesses that have signed a letter of support encouraging you to continue exploring this opportunity at Dodge Riverside. Council Bluffs needs to grow. For the last 50 years, our population has been flat, and during that same time, the Omaha Metro has doubled. Our population is also aging. In 2000, adults ages 25 to 39 made up 29.6% of our population. By 2020, that dropped to 24.8%, and it's expected to fall below 20% in the next few years. There is also a corresponding decline in the percentage of children that has occurred over that time, and this trend is concerning to me and many others. A healthy community depends on a strong labor force, sustainable school enrollment, and a balanced ratio of working age adults to children and older adults. And right now, we're trending in the wrong direction. We're also facing a significant housing shortage, as you know, causing dramatic increases in the rents over the last several years. The lack of housing options has also created a serious opportunity cost. Individuals in high-quality jobs in Council Bluffs, such as teachers, nurses, police officers, and many others, are forced to live in Omaha. Without more housing options here, we do risk losing them entirely when job opportunities open up for them closer to where they live. So we cannot afford to wait. We need to invest in developments that attract people and business investment. Just last week, I attended an economic development course in Kansas City with over 90 economic developers from Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and South Dakota. And one reality that became very clear from the site selectors and economic development experts who presented to the class is that every one of our communities is competing for a very limited pool of potential business investment and workforce. If we don't invest in the growth of our own community, we should not expect to secure investment from that small pool of businesses, because they have plenty of other options. And if we don't invest in amenity-rich developments and diverse housing options, we should not expect to capture workforce growth and new families. But the advantage that we have, that many of those other communities don't, is that we're part of a region that's growing. Omaha has made major investments in its urban core, and Council Bluffs is in a unique position to gain a significant return on their investment. This project is more than a development. It's a signal that Council Bluffs is preparing for the future, that we want to attract families, grow our workforce, and increase our tax base. So on behalf of the Chamber, I urge you to continue to explore this opportunity to grow Council Bluffs. I want to thank you for your time and for your service. I have a tremendous amount of respect for you and the role that you've accepted in serving our community. And I know it's not easy. It's often a thankless job. So I care deeply about this community. I know all of you do as well. And I thank you greatly for your service.
Thank you. Any questions for Chris? Thank you so much.
Good evening, I'm Krista Bloom, 20527 270th Street in McClellan. I'm here to speak in my professional capacity as the president of Siege of Mercy Council Bluffs. And thanks for allowing me time to speak in support of this. There's many challenges facing healthcare, and I think the one that keeps most of us up at night is our workforce and attracting future workforce. Simply put, the demand, much like Chris said, for workforce largely, the demand for healthcare workers is greater than the supply. Recruitment is really competitive, retention even more challenging. And I think one of the best things that we can do is encourage those that we're attracting to work in our community to also live in our community, increases their personal investment in the community that we serve, in addition to their professional one. Availability of rental and home ownership options are really limited, and just in a very specific case in the last several months trying to recruit some of my new leaders to live and work here, options are really limited, and that I've been less successful than I wanted to be. So this is speaking to me quite a bit right now, as I think this would create some future options. I will persevere. We will get some of them here, don't worry. It'll just take longer than we'd like. I'd also like to comment on the benefits of the population density and growth that this could create, specifically to our healthcare systems. Increasing the overall growth of the population is critically important to the ecosystem in our community. We've had 2 great hospitals serving Council Bluffs for over 137 years, and it might sound odd for me to say this, but I think having 2 options for a community our size for emergency and acute care is a tremendous benefit to this community. CJ Health Mercy, Council Bluffs, and Methodist Jenny Edmondson are competitors, but that means we make each other better, and the citizens of this community benefit as a result of that. It also draws investment from both health systems into this community and our pursuit of making the overall community a healthier place to live. So growing the population that's served by our 2 hospitals would be a really stabilizing factor in what is certainly going to be a continued unpredictable future in healthcare now, for the next few decades, and probably forever, but population growth would be incredibly stabilizing. I'd like to echo Chris and say thank you all for your thankless service, your leadership for the city.
Thank you. Any questions?
Oh.
And Chris, do you have any idea what percentage of your current employment staff
You know, I should have
lives in Omaha that
I should have looked at that. I know we have several that work outside city limits in rural Iowa, but I'm surprised by the number that live in Omaha and drive here to work. I think it's a great testament to our work environment. That's great. I'm a transplant personally 12 years ago to this community, and even when I worked with CHI Health in Omaha, we've continued to settle on this side. I know just outside of Council Bluffs, but this has continued to be our home, and it has sort of strengthened my affinity to living and working here. So I have a personal bias in that regard, and I'd like to see more of our staff benefit from that.
Thank you.
Good evening. We are members of the City Council, people Mello, Patrick Circle. I'm the superintendent of the Council Bluffs Community School District, and I'm here tonight in support of continuing to explore the redevelopment of the Dodge River site. In our school district, we have identified the lack of single-family homes or housing as a barrier to families, faculty, and staff members who want to live within our school district boundaries. We can, at least in part, attribute this housing deficit to the significant decline in our student enrollment in our school district over the past 5 years. While this has not been an unusual trend in our state since COVID, we believe, though, that the investment in new neighborhoods, like the one proposed for the Dodge Riverside, can help reinvigorate our community. I truly believe that development of the Dodge Riverside will spark a renewed interest for young families to live and work in our community, enroll their children in our schools, and take advantage of all that Council Bluffs has to offer. We have the capacity as a school district to accommodate more students, and we're willing to review our school boundaries if necessary to ensure we're not overcrowded at any one school. We truly hope that exploring this development will move forward, and I welcome the opportunity to visit with each of you and provide any additional information you might find helpful as you consider this important project. Thank you.
Any questions for Dr. Merle?
Dr. Merlo, when we met a few weeks ago, one of the concerns was about houses in the apartments, and that the amount of apartments don't necessarily bring in the amount of children into the district. So are you in favor of standalone housing, or are you in favor of the current proposal that you've seen where there was only 64, 68 standalone houses that was proposed down there, and the rest 3,000 and some were apartments?
I'm in favor of seeing the redevelopment. I am very thankful that the housing was added and it's not just apartments. I do believe that the the need for housing, as Chris just spoke in front of me, as we recruit our teachers, our greatest concern is they move out towards Millard and that. And then after a while, they start raising families and we start losing. I lost 2 really good teachers this year to Millard. Why? That's where their homes are, even though they've been a part of our community for many, many years, and now they're raising children there. So then they're being hired because every school district is looking for employees. And I would really love to have the housing here for them, but also for families so that our school district grows in enrollment because we have nowhere to go, we're landlocked. And so it's a 50-50. I mean, the apartments would draw the employees because, you know, if you ask me kind of where the workforce, we're about 55-45% split who comes across the river and who lives here. And so it would be really nice to have more in our community. So that would be a temporary fix, but we do need to find more homes for our families to buy. So I'm right there with you on that.
Thank you.
And it's not a plan, it was a concept designed to ascertain what the cost of infrastructure installation was versus what the potential is for property tax revenue. And so we need to do a master plan to figure out the true plan. But I think that conceptual plan was slightly less than 4,000 apartment units and slightly less than 1,000 owner occupied units. So not 50, so much more than that.
And those are the numbers.
Yeah,
It says 13 village homes, 36 cottage homes, and 103 townhomes. The rest are multi.
And that, again, what we're discussing today is not
Conceptual,
that
conceptual
plan.
master.
We're discussing the idea of whether or not we want to do the due diligence and actually find out what that was. Think something about Iowa West that gives us an idea of what could be possible, a peg, so to speak, of we could possibly go more dense or less dense, whichever way we decide as a community in the event we decide to go down that path. I just tried to shed some light on what is or could be possible. We do not have a proposal in front of us at this point.
Right, we have a conceptual master plan.
And if I might add one more, we're really looking to retain our students after they complete their IRCs or their degrees and bringing them back and finding a place for them to live as young people is critically important also to our community.
Thank you so much.
I am Allie Nichols, 635 Sims Avenue. While I am a city employee, I'm here on my own time expressing my approval for a city council to consider proposals for potential development at Dodge Riverside. And I'm really just wanting to implore you guys, I know there's a lot of polarizing views on either side of the issue. And so I just wanted you guys to remember that you're not just representing the people who live here in Council Bluffs right now. You're also setting the future up for the people, for my kids who I hope stay here, for their children to stay here and have opportunities to have a city that is flourishing and a city that is changing. The citizens here tonight, myself included, we have responsibilities when it comes to conversations about development of the city, making sure that we keep open minds and that we ground our opinions in real, credible facts. And we must resist the urge to let emotions or fear override reason. We need to trust that we all have our best interests in the community, and we might have different views on what that looks like and what those changes are. But at the end of the day, city officials and people who are leaders in our city are there to make the best informed decisions, to use their forward-thinking ability, to rely on people who have the knowledge to make the best proposals so we all as a community can see the potential of our city come to fruition. This isn't just about Dodge Riverside Club, it's about every project our city takes on. Growth requires vision, progress demands courage, and leadership, true leadership, means doing what is right even when it's not easy. Please consider approving this resolution. Thank you.
Any questions for Alan? Anybody else?
I'm Janine Denberg. Janine Denberg, address 325 Oak Ridge View Circle, Council Bluffs. I'm actually here, I'm the chief nursing officer at Methodist Evanston Hospital, and I just want to really support everything that Kristen said. As she mentioned, we are competitors, but we're both on the same area of trying to build workforce here in Council Bluffs, and we can't do that without people and without places for them to live. What we see in the hospital trends right now is we'll get somebody to come in and they stay because they're just graduating from nursing school. They stay only long enough to get some financial assistance underneath them, and then they end up moving over to Omaha. And we see it time and time and time again. Our turnover records are showing it. They are moving back, they're moving over to Omaha because they have the housing, they have the areas to move their families that they are starting. These are usually very young professionals, in the beginning of their careers, and we are losing them. They're here long enough to get training, and we really want them to stay and invest in our community. But without housing, it's very hard to get them to stay. So I just really wanted to say how much in support we are of this and how much we need that housing for our workforce development and healthcare. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Starting my time early again. Justin J. 23092, what's that? Give him 4. Hey, now, don't get started, man. This is going to have to go real fast. I'm the fire chief here. I've worked for the city for 26 years. And I want to start off by thanking the council members because all of you sat down with me and I talked to you on the phone. I really want to talk about the why. And I want everyone to kind of understand why we would actually consider this. And truly, what is the city's real problem? And so when I oftentimes use the word density, I'm really talking about two things. Density in population and density in valuation. Our city has neither, and it's never had. And so that has been our struggle as long as I've been here. I talked to the mayor the other day. In my career here, we've been at the cap of the 810 levy almost the entire time. That's the levy that pays for police and fire. We cannot tax anymore. The only way to fix our issues is to build taxable valuation in a very dense spot where we already have infrastructure. And so density has been the problem for the last 50 years. And as a city, we just don't have any one area where there's actually a ton of density. I looked up the density of the city of Council Bluffs. It's 600 people per square mile, or 600 people per square mile. The average city in the United States is 1,600. When you look at Omaha, it's 3,433 people per square mile. When you look at Ankeny, Iowa, it's 2,243 people per square mile. Des Moines is 2,428. That's important because when we talk about how we move forward, we have to talk about what pays for what. And it's about taxable evaluation and density. Oftentimes here, and rightfully so, people complain about the streets, they complain about the storm sewers, and they need repair. I'll agree with that. Our streets and sewers are paid for by three things, none of which are property taxes. So when I hear people complain about property taxes and then turn around and say they should take our taxes and pay for streets, that isn't how it works. Property taxes don't pay for that. Property taxes pay for police, fire, general government, which is parks and the people that work inside this building. That's all it is. That's the only thing property taxes pay for. Streets and sewers are paid for by three things: road use tax, local option sales tax, and sewer usage fees. Road use tax is the tax that we all pay at the pump, goes to the state of Iowa, gets redistributed back to the city based on population. So if you have a population that doesn't ever change, but your linear feet of street and sewers continue to grow, you go broke. Basically, in our city, we have 341 miles of streets. We collect about $8.5 million a year in road use tax. That's important. It's solely based on population. Local option sales tax is something else that plays for streets and sewers. That's 1 penny for every dollar spent here in Council Bluffs. Our revenue on that's about $13 million. Sewer fees for sanitary sewers annually creates about $14.5 million. That's the charge you pay when you're connected to the sewer. The average or rough estimate, what I got from Matt, on a street in Council Bluffs or a house on the west end, they pay about $35 to $45 a month. So about $420 a year. So you got a total of $36 million that come into the city to fix sewers and streets. Of that, about $13 million of it is used for operations, people that actually work inside public works. In a study completed recently, not too long ago, by Public Works, it showed that we had $360 million worth of streets to fix if we were going to bring them all up to a very good standard. We had $600 million worth of sewers that needed to either be expanded or bigger with the treatment facilities or replaced. $600 million, and we're throwing $23 million at it. That's all we got. That don't work. That's the problem. I'll give you a quick example. I'm gonna run out of time, but let me give you a quick example. I took one city block that's West End and looked at what's the taxable valuation of the population. There's 26 houses on the block. I figured them all at $180,000 a piece. There's 3 people I said lived in each house. That's 78 people, 4.7 million. When you go down and look at this project, it's coming out of the ground right now. It's on the same linear feet of streets and sewers as that block of houses. This project alone is $28 million in taxable valuation and 350 people. That's the only way we fix this problem in the future. It's plain and simple. I wish I had more time I could go through it. You guys have heard me say this repeatedly. When my employees leave the station, I ask them to ask themselves 2 things. What's best for the citizens as a whole? What's it take to win? And what I'm asking you guys to do is to ask yourselves those same 2 questions. What we need a win. I am not for putting 16 apartment buildings on Dodge Park. We need a project that changes this city forever, gives us revenue that we can go fix these streets and these sewers.
Thank you.
And we're not going to be able to do it otherwise. Thank you.
Anybody else speaking in favor?
While he's making his way up here, Brandon Garrett, 633 Spencer Avenue. While he's making his way up, just wanted to point out on that study session, there was a proposed amended resolution, so just for your consideration.
I don't think we can accept that because that's not what's on the, somebody can make a motion for it, but, yeah.
I just wanted to point that out.
Keep a resolution on the agenda is what we're talking about.
Right.
Correct.
We would have to amend the resolution if that was what we did.
You'd have to make a motion.
Yeah. Correct.
Okay. Trevor Morgan, 533 Clark Avenue. Thanks for the time, the ability to speak, for your service, your community work. I work with a lot of city employees, and I'm kind of appalled at the things you got to go through online. I understand why people stay off social media, and it is a horrible barometer for how you might feel about this project. I know there's a lot of people in support of it that are young families like mine, putting their children to bed right now. So I'm lucky I get to be here. The other point I want to make is, aside from my community work, I also substitute teach. I particularly sub at Edison Elementary, like 1 day a week, and 1 at a time. And I can tell you that none of those kids go golfing. None of those kids can afford to go golfing. And as it stands, you have 60 acres of public ground that is not equitable to those families, and I would probably argue a few other elementary schools. They can't afford it, and they'll never see it. And you have this beautiful property that could be so much more for everybody. I echo a lot of sentiments that people, things that have been said. I also don't want to see maybe 16 Broadmoors, stacked on one another, of course. But something to change the face and something to be excited about and something that everybody can use is what I would be in favor of. So I just implore you to explore it. You got to at least explore it. I think it's worth it and valuable. So thank you.
I was turn, just so you know, potentially the kids that can't afford it, if they go to TJ or AL, they get to golf down there, and the city provides that, right? As a courtesy to the high schools, the schools practice down there, the boys and girls from AL and TJ. I just want to, so you know.
Yeah,
I'm sure maybe you do that, but.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I'm glad the city offers so many recreational opportunities, right? Pools, so many parks that we love. But, this just feels a little different. If there weren't any other golfing options around town, I would feel different. I'd be like, yeah, this is kind of a unique thing, but we have an opportunity here to just do something different. And I think that would make a huge positive change. So please understand.
And
I like golf, by the way. I'd love to golf. I'll do another round in Dodge if this goes through.
In my research, I talked to Whispering Woods, and he felt that he could accommodate high school programs. He does several already, and said it would be difficult, but he found that he could. Anybody else in favor?
City Council. My name is Shelley Witcher. I live in Omaha, full disclosure, 28207 19th Avenue. I have worked in hotels for approximately 16 years. Previously worked as an attorney at Iowa Legal Aid. I am currently a board member and have been for a number of years with the Potawatomi County Housing Trust Fund. And I would ask that you support this. The Housing Trust Fund grants about $500,000 per year to assist housing-related activities, but we're often hear about the need for the additional housing from the community organizations that we work with. Creating new housing will allow for additional capacity in our system and provide opportunities for our residents. As a previous attorney at Iowa Legal Aid, I saw personally clients who were facing eviction, which is a big piece of what Iowa Legal Aid helps individuals with, finding housing. They have an eviction help desk up at the courthouse. A lot of what they do currently, that help desk, is to work with individuals to find, to negotiate with landlords to find new places to live, and unfortunately there just aren't new places to live. So they do their best to try to keep tenants, in their housing. And this community clearly has a need for more new places for families, whether that's individual homes or that's denser housing complexes, just for individuals to be able to have a place to go. If there is, the other piece that I did a lot at Iowa Legal Aid was with domestic violence protection orders, and that also, housing is a huge piece of that need, because if individuals do need to get away from domestic violence situations, they often need a place to go. Sometimes it's not possible for them to stay where they are. So I implore you to consider this and to support this so that we can have more housing.
Anybody else speaking in favor? Seeing none, as we transition, I know some people sent in letters either for or against. Do you have a tally of those?
Yes, the clerk's office has received and filed 9 letters of opposition and 18 letters of support.
So anybody speaking against? And again, name and address for the record, please.
I'm Diane Story, I live at 148 Ivy Drive. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and neighbors. I'm here to ask respectfully but urgently, do not approve the resolution to declare Dodge Riverside Golf Club as transitional preserve, which would lead to the sale and redevelopment of the land on which it sits. This is not just any golf, any golf course. Part of this land was donated by General Grenville Dodge and his brother Nathan P. Dodge. 2 men whose names are woven into the very fabric of this city's history. Since it opened in 1927, this course has been a community treasure for nearly a century. The Dodge Riverside Golf Club is more than fairways and greens. It hosts over 20 tournaments a year, many raising funds for organizations that serve all of us: Habitat for Humanity, the police department, and the fire department. It provides an affordable, accessible practice competition space for local high school golf teams, a rare and precious resource in a time when youth activities are under constant pressure. And it's a gathering place for residents of all ages. For recreation, community, and mental well-being. Now, we're being asked to give all of that up for a proposed development of 3,900 plus residential units, of which the resolution states no more than 30% of the units as low and moderate income, and over 200,000 square feet of commercial space in a FEMA Zone X shaded area of moderate flood hazard. According to the city's own 2020 study, to even make this feasible, the project would require massive fill, the construction of 2 new pump stations, and the addition of multimodal transportation like a streetcar. That's not just a development, that's a transformation of landscape with enormous financial, environmental, and logistical risks. We have to ask, is this the right place for such a gamble? Once we pave over this historic and vibrant green space, there's no going back. We will have lost a recreational gem, a piece of our city's story, and a vital community resource, all for a project whose cost, both literal and figurative, may not exceed its promises. I urge you, honor the legacy of the Dodge family, respect the will of the community, and preserve this remarkable place for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Diane? Thank you very much. Anybody else speaking?
It's great, here you go. Randall Bain, 1007 East Carey Street, Papillion, Nebraska. I was born and raised in Council Bluffs. I'm active on several, I volunteer in several committees over here. I have a document that I'd like to share with the mayor and the council.
You bet.
Motion to receive, file.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I learned to golf at Westwood Park and played for TJ's golf team. That was a benefit. But what I'm here to talk about, I'm not in opposition to developing Council Bluffs. In fact, I'd like to see Council Bluffs develop more than where it has in recent years. My concern is development that might not be comprehensively beneficial to the city and to the residents. As a prior person spoke there, I think the golf course is a gem. It's the oldest metropolitan golf course in the area. When you drive down I-29 and you look over, or if you're walking down the levee system, and you see that old growth cottonwood trees in there, it's really a major benefit. One of my concerns are if you develop that area into residential, maybe light commercial, you're destroying that gem. And once it's gone, it's going to be gone forever. And then where do you take the people to benefit when we need more recreational opportunities? Another concern, which I haven't really heard spoken about too much tonight, is how the Dodge family back in 1910 deeded this land to the city of Council Bluffs in perpetuity to be used as open space recreation. I don't think they meant to be used as a golf course. In fact, in documents that I've seen from the library, they wanted it to be a wildlife reserve, and that didn't happen. But I'm a little concerned when you look at the definition of perpetuity. It doesn't say anything about 115 years. And I think this council and this administration ought to be really careful on the decisions you're making. That's going to change something, like the lady said, is a historic thread back to the Dodge family that was so intimate to the growth of Council Bluffs back in the days. Now, the second thing I really have a concern about, I'm an engineer. I had 34 years with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers out of the Omaha district. I'm in the private sector now as an engineer. And my concern is along the riverway there that this is a flood hazard area. And we've seen the floods of 93, 2011, 2019. We've seen up and down the river. Even though the levee system stops here by Big Lake Park, you move on down the river, we've seen levees that have overtopped and they breached, and what happens with that. My concern is if you develop that area, you could beef up the levees, they're earthen levees, you could make them higher, you could make them wider. If you're bringing a lot of fill material, are you also jeopardizing another environmental area that you're bringing soil from somewhere, and what are you doing to degrade that environment? Well, let's say you did, you beefed up the levees. We know the frequency of flooding on the Missouri River has increased. We've seen it continues to increase. The climate changes. The levee system down there is static, but the climate's dynamic. When that river floods, or even if it doesn't flood, but it increases in flow, there's a hydraulic connection to the flood. And years ago, before there was any levee system there, back in the days of Kingville instead of Council Bluffs, that river would swing back and forth depending on the amount of flooding that it had in the springtime. So what happens, there's old river channels beneath the soil here, and when that river runs high like it did in 2019 and 2011, these old channels get supercharged. So my concern is, if that levee were to overtop, or if it were to breach, you have the I-29 embankment, the Union Pacific embankment, and the 480 embankment, and you would have people trapped in there like a reservoir of water filling around. So what's their egress route out of there? Now you can also, I think I've heard it proposed, you can elevate houses in there, and you can put parking below the houses and put the people up above it. You can have to look at ADA, disabilities, and things like that also. But another concern associated with this that I really think the city needs to look at, all the rooftops, driveways, and streets that go in there, there's going to be a heck of a lot of runoff, stormwater runoff. You're going to need some type of system. You're not going to get gravity flow into the river.
Any questions for?
How long were you an engineer with the Corps of Engineers?
34 years.
34 years. And we've been flooding more frequently, like you say. I was a city firefighter. I mean, and not once has it come over the top of our levees to this point.
Yeah.
And if we do lose a levee, it's most likely going to be at Big Lake, would you say?
Not necessarily. The Narrows Park just south of there is the most narrow part, but I think the river stream bed either degrades or grades. And if it's a grading, you're also losing capacity of that river system in there. And it's, to me, it's just a concern. I hate to see.
And if we do lose the levee at Big Lake, what floods?
All of the north part of Council Bluffs.
Yeah. All the way to 4th Street right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are concerns.
Yes.
But yes, they've been building levees and dikes since Greece.
Yeah, but they don't.
3,000 years, 7,000 years ago.
You're not seeing it anymore. The idea of elevating buildings, that'll work.
Well, I'm not saying that. I've had construction for 28 years. I understand it. Well, as an engineer with the Corps, would widen the levees north of town, a half-mile out each side of the river, and take pressure off this pressure point, let that waterway out up there instead of come rushing down through here.
In 2011, you saw that look like a lake all the way north of.
Yes, but that's what it's meant to do.
Yeah.
That's what that floodplain was about.
If I could say, in 2011, if you were down there at Dodge Park, you saw all the geotech fabric that was placed along that levee, on the dry side of the levee, because the Corps of Engineers in the state of Iowa were scared to death that that levee system was going to be lost. The same thing on the pumping station on North 25th Street, you came very close to losing that, which would have flooded the part of town now.
Yes.
But since then, I think they've been reinforced and recertified by the Corps of Engineers, just recently.
Yeah, to meet the 100-year flood, but I'm talking about a flood that could be larger, which we've seen. I'm not here to be contentious with you, it's just something.
No, I'm just trying to educate.
Yeah.
Is what I want to do, because we got to talk facts.
Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
input.
Were you at the Corps during 2011, 2019?
Yeah, I was over here flood fighting also up and down the levee system.
When did you retire from the Corps?
2018. And I do, 2 weeks from today, I'll be down in New Orleans teaching a workshop on flood risk. It's I hate to call it the anniversary, but of Hurricane Katrina. If you ever looked at the 9th Ward and what happened with that flooding down there during Katrina, that's when I'm scared could happen in a situation like this.
Which after that flood event, Corps of Engineers and FEMA required all cities protected by a levee to be recertified. So Council Bluffs is still working on their recertification. We haven't done the very south end by Veterans Memorial, but that area, which we call Tub A, is recertified and keeps, as you said, everything from about 8th Street to the levees out of the flood plain. Levee protection.
Once again, remember that the certifications for the 100-year flood, the 1% annual chance flood, the levees protect up to 250,000 cubic feet per second. I forget what frequency of flooding that is, but we're seeing the frequency of flooding increase on the Missouri River. And then you could also say, hey, there's 6 main stem dams on the Missouri River. That's going to help keep that down. Those 6 main stem dams only control 30% of the basin. 70% of that basin comes in around those dams. James River, Big Sioux River, Little Sioux River. So it's just a concern.
And we saw that in 19, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Anybody else speaking against?
Yeah, I'm Ken Clay, I live at 2732 Terra Hill Street. And we're talking about houses and everything else. There's immense amounts of land around town to build houses in. The problem is, people are leaving Council Bluffs, just like my 2 sons. There is a lack of quality of life here. We need things for people to do. When they're not working, they have to have things to do. Both of my sons started playing golf at Westwood. I used to live on 11th Avenue. Saturday afternoons, I'd take them down there and we would play. And then someone decided the interstate was going to go there, so they had to close it, and the interstate didn't go there, and now it's a weed pile. With a lack of things to do, people are leaving the area. There's nothing to hold them here. You have to give them quality of life things. I don't care when they say, well, you build a house, people will come here. No, they're going to go out there in West Omaha because they're keep building things for them to do. There's lots of golf courses out there. You know, there's more amusement parks. There's everything for them to do. The kids have better facilities for sports. If you don't keep going with Council Bluffs to make an improvement, people are going to leave. I mean, that's pretty much all I can say on that thing is, you know, with nothing to do, I'm going to find a town that will find things to do. And whether, you know, there's both of my sons have left, I wish they would stay here because now I got to drive, you know, 4 hours each way to watch my grandsons play soccer in Brookings, South Dakota. But if you'd ever looked at that, the university, or South Dakota State University, does ample things with kids for their sports. And I wish we could get Iowa Western to do the same thing here. We can get things going and we create things for families to do, they will stay. And they're not just going to come down here and say, well, let's see, Dodge Park has only flooded 3 times in the last 8 years. By God, I can take you down there and build a house. They're not going to go there. They're going to go, well, I can go down there and hopefully have a great sump pump and maybe they'll build something else for me to do around here. It's a quality of life issue. Council Bluffs has been regressive for as long as I can remember. I don't know what else to say, but we need to create an atmosphere that promotes families and people living here. I mean, if you can do it in Brookings, South Dakota, where it's it is cold up there and snow. You can do that here in Council Bluffs. But closing Dodge Riverside is just, to me, is one of the dumbest ideas I've ever heard of. You go down there, that parking lot is packed, the economic impact, there's a lot of people from Omaha and surrounding areas that come down, and the economic impact, they stay there at Harris, they buy their gas from the local gas stations, they buy their foods from all the restaurants around there. I think we need to look at the impact on that. We can't just, say, oh, this is a done deal. So I want people to consider, we do need housing, but there's lots of land around here that's sitting vacant. The city can help develop it. I mean, private individuals are better at developing things than cities. That's been a proven fact for as long as I know. Get a private industry in, they will make the thing and they'll make it better. If you have to have a tax incentive, so be it. It'll eventually work its way around. But if we draw in the right types of things, people will come here. It's not if we keep closing down our parks and building substandard places. I mean, if you look down there on South 16th Street, all those people put in basements. First thing they did, reason he shut off his groundwater pumps because he was done with the sewer. Everybody's basements flooded. They had to have sump pumps. You're going to have the same thing right there by the river.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As I approach the clock, this is a teaching light. I didn't know anything about it.
I was gonna say, it was just like this big in front of you, Terry, I don't know.
How does it start? Do I push a button?
No, you're going.
You're on.
Forgive me, I think you need to make this like an airplane where you let your travelers. All right, we'll try it this time. I see the light. Okay, do I push the button?
Okay, you're good.
You're already great, here we go. I can't believe, well, first off, it's Terry Oswald, 1517 Chestnut Drive, Council Bluffs, Iowa. I can't believe it's 30 years ago that I'm standing here. 30 years ago, I was involved for 2 years, continuously, in sacrificing my health, possibly losing my job because of all the time I spent on what I'm about to tell you about, personal safety, to you name it, because I was asked to stop the effort to put casinos next to houses at Exarban. And let me tell you, that took a lot out of me and the whole group. I was one of the 4 people that basically founded Gambling with the Good Life, which is still operating today. But I moved back here in '98, having to my hometown. But having said that, the fact that I'm standing here in 2025, and rather than arguing and persuading that we don't put casinos next to houses, now I'm playing it the other way. Let's not put houses next to casinos. And what's really odd to me is that some of the people that have put together the plan, the downtown Omaha plan, of which this is part of it, it's in their drawings from 2018-19, are the people I worked with in 95 and 6 to stop casinos from being next to houses. I can tell you for an absolute fact, people are horrified, they are terrified that they will wake up and they will be living next to casinos. Moving forward, I've been looking at the resolution. And there's some, from my perspective, based on facts, don't have time to go into the references today, there's some real things wrong with this resolution. First off, it says, we have a significant proportion of housing stock built prior to 1990. You bet. I know some of us in this room, hi Matt, you better than me, can remember when we built no houses in the 1980s. I look at that number, that's a big win. Over a third of the houses have been built
since 1980. I see that a response or opportunity to reverse the population stagnation. I heard that we have a 50-year thing. No, we don't. The population went down, and this town is unique amongst hundreds or thousands of the U.S. We turned things around in the 80s and have come back. This city's population is up 17% since 1990. Yes, it has sort of plateaued, but so has the city across the street that we want to tire our wagon to. They actually are flat and going down. Beyond that, we had retail sales go up. We had a complete turnaround over 20 years ago. We've had a lot of things change for the better. Lastly, what really perplexes me about this proposal is real inconsistencies. I listened to the other speakers here. Everything, homelessness, affordable housing, property tax relief, I mean, it's like every ill in this community now depends on the conversion of this golf course that you heard the engineer say probably has some flood issues. I mean, I am just flabbergasted by this. Beyond this, again, I've heard this about affordable housing. I mean, we've had this on the table as part of the Omaha plan, which can I get a receive and file? I want to pass along to you. This comes from the city website. These are select pages from a deck that references on the last page. And you can see that Brandon Garrett, all due respect, he's working hard, and others with people in Omaha said back in 2018 and 19, let's do this. And actually the trolley runs right through Dodge Park. Going beyond that, I guess I'll just wrap this up. Look at this, I got 50 seconds left, Matt. As I'll say, I look at houses, we've got thousands of homes we have thousands of apartment units. I just found out on Thursday afternoon that we have something with the pipeline, apartment complexes out on Eastern Hills Road and Highway 6. That's out by me. So, I mean, we have land. I cannot believe that everything in our community boils down to this piece of ground, which I'm going to go back to. I don't think people are going to want to live by casinos. And with that, I'll wrap it up. Thank you.
That's a question.
I'm here for questions.
Sir, second? Yeah, second, that was me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I want you to.
Okay.
The gambling institute that you're talking about, was that Zarbin racetrack in Omaha?
There was a group of...
No, that's not, I asked, was that the Zarbin racetrack in Omaha?
Zarbin horse track operated by Benevolence.
And that neighborhoods that you're talking about that were butted up against there, built while that gambling institution was there?
Actually, they were
to the east.
They were horse racing is much different. It's an agrarian, quiet,
I get it, but it's a gambling institution.
Not like casinos with slots and all the things.
And you did get shut down, and congratulations, I'm not a gambler, I don't like gambling.
I actually don't have a problem with casinos.
What replaced it?
Well, drive to 72nd and Pacific, and you'll see it's
mixed use.
What's that?
Mixed use?
You'll see it turned into a university.
Yes, for business.
Turned into a tech park.
Yes, for business, and then it's mixed use.
Yeah, and then it
transitions. Spaces.
And then transitions.
And a park.
Correct.
And an ice skating rink, I believe. And it really improved the area, I think.
They did.
And that's kind of the example we used.
Actually, but I will tell you, we preserved Exarban, Dundee Memorial.
I'm not doubting that.
And that was what drove that.
But what I'm saying is that's kind of the example that we use.
It's not the example. We're talking about putting homes next to Harris, Ameristar's new $200 million development, and Horseshoe, and who knows what else we're going to do. It's a totally different business.
But we haven't, what you're looking at now is the concept. We don't have a plan.
I don't care if they're single family or apartments. People don't want to live next to casinos.
Well, they built right up to the horse track.
Horse tracks, Steve, are much different than casinos.
right, thank you.
They just have it's a totally different race.
Oh,
And actually,
one more
one
question.
we would have never rose up
Could
against
you
it.
define for me what fear porn is?
That if Mr. Garrett was out saying, if we don't do this, we're going to close down the fire department, we're going to close down the library.
said that.
Actually, it was said at the library meeting we had, these things have been mentioned repeatedly, that these types of things, if we don't do this, look, we're not going to be able to recruit anybody. It's all about this golf course. We won't be able to solve the youth problems. It's like, it all depends on this 140 acres sitting on the river. That's ridiculous.
Well, no, you were against a development into Chestnut.
Actually, we're for, I'm not
You were
even
against the development.
Actually, not that, we were against tiny homes that did not, with 5-foot setbacks, that did not meet the.
That's the development that you were against. You were against the development in West Primrose.
No.
You were, because you got up here and said, I didn't know I was talking.
things that are compatible with complementary to what's there.
And you said to me I didn't understand anything. I didn't know what I was talking about the fire department that I worked in for 30 years. I remember the comment.
I don't know what.
Yes, and so I just wanted the definition of fear porn, and
I would say that fear porn is when I'm meeting with Mr. Garrett for an hour, and he says if we don't do certain things, we're going to have to close the library.
Do you think fear porn would also be that we're going around the council, that we're doing things under the table, that we're taking kickbacks and our mayor?
I have not said any of those things.
Those are on your, some of
No,
your
actually,
posts.
they're absolutely not.
Yes,
They're absolutely
I read
not.
them all, so.
No, not at all.
Those are also fear porn.
Actually, I've gotten a lot of compliments for my.
Would you consider that to be a fear porn also?
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Anybody else? Jay Boobles, 21850 Martinwood Drive. Actually, I don't have it all unified. I like playing at the golf course. The question that I've been just sitting here listening to both sides, and the questions I would have is, one, you guys are just building this new complex out by the oil plant, whatever, down by Veterans Highway. You're putting up houses. I live out by the airport. There's houses going up left and right out there. You build these new houses, are you going to oversaturate the market, and then the value goes down? Two, I have a brother who lives on Avenue G. His garage was burned down. His shed's been burned down because of homelessness. Oh, but there's homelessness all around. There's homelessness. People walk across the bridge, come over to Council Bluffs, do whatever they want, and they go back over, whatever. You got the fire department's going to have to respond. The police is going to have to respond. And now you're building southeast, which I thought for my 60 years of living here was the best thing to do there. You can't go to the north because of the marshes. You can't go to the east because of the hills. You got to go south and you got to go east. So, I don't know. My question to you guys would be public safety. Eventually, the people that live out east pretty much stay out east. It's the only public golf course in the city. All the rest are either private or semi-private. I don't know, the last, I don't know if it was the last one or the one before, the Parks and Rec director moved to Colorado, which gets more funding. They're building parks left and right, where these guys are taking away parks. I don't know what the answer is one way or the other. I think it's something that you should almost pause and think about. The casino came in, they built Westwood Park. Now it's just an eyesore. I mean, they could easily put that like a 9-hole course. I don't, but it just seems like you guys rush to do something, and then eventually come back, Mike and Paul. So Jay, just a couple of thoughts. And one, there wasn't any significant rush to do anything. I've been talking about this for 4 years. Thought about it day one when we brought in the management firm, the Landscapes Unlimited. I told them at the time, this is too valuable a land to be a golf course. And I promised them I'd give them a year's notice because the golf business requires them to, as somebody said earlier, so many tournaments a year, and when that tournament's over, the person in charge of the tournament says, I want to book next year. I said, I'll give you 2 years notice. And so that's part of the rush. That's why we're looking at it this spring. But we've been talking about it for a long time. This council in 2023 said investigate it, 3-2 vote. We investigated it. We're here tonight to talk about whether we go forward or not. Our Parks Department's put a lot of money in parks in Council Bluffs, and all you have to do is go look at all the new equipment in the parks, the new First Avenue bike trail, in this area, in the master plan, I'm sure will include parks that everybody can use, not just golfers. I can't remember what else you asked about, but we've been thinking about it and planning, and we're getting feedback tonight. But thanks for your input. Still made one of the greatest catches I've ever seen in softball. I thought he was young, lithe, and quick, and he went over the fence and caught it on the other side of the fence.
What were your last words?
Plenty of room, plenty of room. I knew he was going to hit the fence, and I just hollered, plenty of room.
You're okay. You're good. My name is Jim Olson. I live at 3111 Middle Ferry Road, Council Bluffs, Iowa. And I'm a lifelong golfer. Graduated from TJ. And I'm just amazed that nobody has thought of the golf course as a green space. In the city, it's a green space, like Central Park or some of the other parks in town. All right, we have kids. We build the course, our playgrounds for the kids. Then we have basketball, we have baseball courts, we have soccer fields, we have everything. Then when you get to be an old person and you need the exercise, no, we can't have a green space. Now there's one other thing that when we had the flood of 2018, you just go up and down. All you have to do is go from like Council Bluffs up to Missouri Valley and look at the trees that are gone. The duck hunters can also tell you about all the other ponds that are filled up with sand and everything else that come from not having the right minerals for the trees. And the Corps of Engineers, maybe he has some figures or he could find some figures, but at that time, there was 990,000 trees that were between Sioux City and down to Rulo, Nebraska. But now in Council Bluffs, we have a green space. And you can look out. I've lived at 638th Avenue as a teenager. And when I look out, when I drive over the bridge or look down there, when I ride my bicycle along the levees and stuff, you don't see the trees you used to. They're gone. You can't believe it, that they're all gone. And we're going to get rid of a green space that creates oxygen. So that's and quality of life is also here. But I can't believe that the Parks Department can't support all the people from the time you're born and you want to play in a playground to the time you want to go exercise in a golf course that has been here for 100 years, and we're going to get rid of it just because it's some ground. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? I'm going to apologize. I'll be back. I've got a 7-year-old kid. Can't take it any longer. I know that feeling.
You don't have to wait for that, if you don't want, you can go and tell us. Or you can wait if you want, either way.
Well, no, that's fine. I mean, he's not going to vote anyway. My name's Bob Womble, up 3342 Avenue B. First of all, I want to address the housing shortage that I keep hearing about. In 1970, the population of Council Bluffs was 60,000, almost 400 people, 60,400. And estimated 2023, 62,400. 2,000 increase in 65 years. 65 years. Now, you're telling me we're going to put 3,900 units on a golf course when the population is doing this. Now we're going to do this. We have a 1.5% to 2% housing surplus. I got a house that's been for sale for $165,000, 2 blocks from the school since November of 2023. The shortage isn't there. I don't see it. Now, last week I drove up to the golf course and I talked with the people that were coming on and off of the course that golf there. And one thing that a lot of them said, I said, well, you got alternatives. And they said, no. They said, a lot of us are heart patients, strokes, heart attacks in the past. This is a flat course to walk that helps us. The other courses are too much for our hearts and stuff. So there is that need that we've overlooked. I mean, number 2, people leave Council Bluffs, the brain drain, the talent drain, the kids from high school graduate, because we don't have Fortune 500 companies here. We don't, the jobs. We don't have the climate they want. We don't have the entertainment that we want. We built the Mid-American Center. How many concerts have been out there a year? I don't remember, seeing Aerosmith or anybody like that out there recently. I drove out to Manawa the other day. I sat in the line out there at that new development. Nothing but side dump trucks hauling dirt in there. Millions of dollars being spent to build that lot up. Who's paying for that? Who's going to pay to haul that dirt in there? How much is the streets and the infrastructure, the sewers? What's that going to cost us? There's a lot of things that have not been told to the public on this, and I think that it needs to cease. Perpetuity on that golf course, perpetuity means forever. We have no business touching that on a perpetuity basis. We did a land use survey on one property in town. That was it. We never did, around Twin Lakes, what's wrong with that property for building 100, 200, 300 houses? Across the street from the trailer courts on South 24th Street, right next door to Bluffs Run. There's all kinds of lots. If we want to get rid of a park, let's get rid of Roberts Park up on 25th Street. Let's get rid of the soccer fields and the softball fields. I don't play that. I don't like it. I don't play golf. Somebody on one of the things I saw on the internet said we spent $200,000 putting a well in irrigation on this golf course. I put one in on my farm last year, cost me $40,000, and I thought, you know what? That well lasted 49 years, so that's less than $1,000 a year. So, this is cheap. The city has never pushed and tried to market this golf course. And, I look at it and I think of a Memorial Day Mayor's Cup tournament. I look at it it goes up with other golf courses in town, having like a multiple weekend tournament on 4 different courses. I see a lot of promotion, putting golf simulators out there, putting
things like that, where we can get more use out of that park. We have not called it a park. And the last time I seen a heavy rain out there, 8 or 9 of the fairways were underwater. You couldn't use them anyway. And that was just after rain. And then when it comes to the flood levies and the certifications of that, I understand, that the government says, we got a standard. However, that standard failed in Missouri Valley, the last flood. It failed at Hamburg, Iowa, the last time. Do we really want to put 4,000 units there that might be exposed to floods? Another thing, if we build a $10 million building on that golf course, Matt Wilbur, I just saw a presentation from him here a couple weeks ago. If we put that down on South Omaha Bridge Road, the $10 million building, or $10 million building over here, it's got to be evaluated at $10 million in equal places. So regardless of where we build, we're going to get tax revenue. We don't have to build there. That's, I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Ron. Yeah, the levees along the Missouri River are federal levees. The levee in Missouri Valley was a county levy, I think, a district levy they call them. And then the one in Hamburg, they actually built a levy and they made them take it out. And so it's a little better now. Yes, sir.
Go ahead. Okay. Troy Tech, I'm 509 Redwood Drive. I'm just going to kind of trying not to be too repetitive, but just to kind of recap what some of these guys said. But it was nice to have the engineer here because I don't know about you guys, when we flooded in 2018, I went to Paris parking lot and broken asphalt. It was like jumping on water, but it was squishy. Just the levees breaking alone isn't one thing. Like you said, there's still layers and water that comes in there. And you and I must work on that conversation earlier in the week. But I have a future brother who lives on the west end down there, and ever since they built Playland, it floods worse. It hasn't solved anything. So there's standing water in the streets all along the west side down there by Playland. I think the one thing that frustrates me and gets me angry is just like Terry said, the false dichotomy of this viewpoint. That if we don't do this as one project, that the city falls apart. And that's just not true. I mean, you have new apartments going Ridgeline, you have new apartments going that way. Fox Run, Whispering Oaks, you have housing projects going on all over. I know I've seen Terry's project plans, there's housing projects, and there's new development being planned all over the place. So, but to the other person's point, the population in the last 10 years has dropped 200, basically even. I have a master's degree, I'm working out there IT. I know a lot of people left, and I don't know a single person that left this town because of the lack of housing. They lacked professional amenities. And this golf course is really the only first-class golf course we have. Woods or Fox Run is in serious disrepair. That tree's a nice neighborhood golf course, but it's not top-notch either. And the other private golf course is private, but even that's kind of rough. So, when I used to send people, we had hospital clients from all over the country. Even from where I worked, 168th and West Center, we would send clients to casinos to play golf, to enjoy the entertainment, and it fit nicely. The golf course, the entertainment, the gambling, it fit nicely. If you take that away, you're taking a big part of that away as far as the whole puzzle of what attracts people here. But this whole idea that the housing aspect is hurting us, or even finances. I know I had a little bit of a debate with Chris and Roger on this online, but even though you drop the levy, city taxes are going up 1.7%. That's just a fact. My evaluations on the house has gone up almost 100%. So you've got more money coming in. I pulled the budget from 2015, 2016. It was $134 million. Last year's budget was over $180 million. It was a 38% increase in 9 years. Inflation can account for 32% of that. So you're 6% above inflation as far as revenue growth in this town, even with all the challenges you face. So, as far as that goes, I guess, I'll just say, I know we've heard a lot of city marketing people, and a lot of people that, if I judge where the public sentiment on this is, it's overwhelmingly against this. And I know 3 of you were elected on the median issue. You were elected because people here kind of got obsessed or locked in on a project that nobody wanted. So, you know, remember your representatives and remember to listen to people, because I think people are
So just to address a little bit on the budget, really property taxes are what we measure, but the rest of the budget fluctuates depending on federal loans, how much the city borrows. We're actually the lowest borrowing major city in Iowa, 11% of our debt capacity. Other communities like Des Moines, 58%, so we're pretty low as far as borrowing money, but some of that money, as I said, fluctuates depending on federal grants that we receive, but the one stable area is property taxes.
I mean, over a period of 10 years.
Yeah, it went like 59 million to 6.2 this year.
So this ever-expanding budget, you know, I understand some of it comes from one of different sources, but you guys are running ahead of inflation by quite a bit.
Well, again, if we're going to measure, let's measure fairly, and that's the property taxes collected, which pay for our police and fire. 62 million, 44 million of that pay for public safety. It does go up, and our valuations go up, and rather than jump into the theater of the absurd that's in Facebook, just what you said is exactly what we're talking about, in that, I don't know, everybody in here, I assume, is concerned about their valuation increasing exponentially. It goes up every year. And you know why that is? It's because we have low housing inventory. And when a house goes up for sale, excuse me, I got what you have, I guess. When a house goes up for sale, two people on every house, our chief just bought and bid on the house. Sometimes 3 or 4 people bid on it, and they drive it up over the asking price. Well, then the assessor takes a look at it and says, well, that's what they're selling for, but the only reason they're selling for that is there's no inventory for people to buy from. So when they see something come up in their price range, they start bidding more to bid it up. Then walk in the assessor, raises your valuation, then walk in your property and casualty insurance, which is up 60%, and they're saying, wait a minute, that house was $325 2 years ago, now it's $425, and so we have to increase your property and casualty accordingly. The cost of living goes up just based on low inventory. We're seeing the exact same thing on the rental property.
You speak to a lot of people in the real estate business, so it's a bubble.
Yeah.
It's a bubble. But you're going to agree to the words of that valuation.
It's a bubble that's going to continue as long as there's
But I mean, the
no
housing valuations are far exceeding city inflation. I mean, the rate of inflation rate isn't 100% as well. So I don't want to go down the road.
No, you don't want the truth.
I mean, I think the point is.
I'm trying to make the point to you. I'm trying to make the point to you, and you don't want to listen to me, and I'm very kindly listening to you.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't want to get sidetracked on.
I'm not sidetracking, I'm addressing the very things that you said, sir.
You know, the general budget is increasing far, ahead. I mean, it's true, as you pointed out, to blame, you have to close the library, or you have to fire a policeman or fireman solely because of this project. That kind of insults our intelligence.
It shouldn't.
We see the revenues.
It shouldn't.
Okay.
The state of Iowa is currently reforming property tax law.
Right.
It caps the city's growth at 2%. I've got fire and police that are making between 4 and 5.5% increase. So to say that that isn't accurate is just not true. We try to live within a budget. I try to keep it affordable, and what I'm trying to do with this project is develop housing that can broaden the tax base, that can have more people contribute to the tax base, so I don't tax people out of their homes. And as I was going to say, you can look right at the rental property. During COVID, the federal government didn't allow people to be evicted from their homes. They said, we'll pay the landlord. They paid the tenant, and the tenant didn't pay the landlord. And so landlords were in strife, and incomes, investment, vultures to buy up our rental property, and they did. They offered 1.5 times the appraised value. And then they turned around, and the reason they could do that, and the landlord said, sure, I'll sell it for that. It'll pay my capital gains and I'll take a profit. But the reason they did that is they knew that there was a dearth of housing, a shortage of housing, and they could raise rents. And so they raised the rents 34% since COVID, 34.7 to be exact, according to Zillow. And that's because we have a housing shortage. And so I'm just trying to solve for the housing shortage. And I have
something about the real homes, right?
Yeah.
Go to apartments.com. When the river to 24th Street come on, there's 1,200 and 200 some open apartments right now.
Yeah.
And Council Bluffs, there's about 250. That's 1,700 open apartments available right now. That's just apartments.com.
And a community of 1 million people.
I think somewhere everybody kind of sees that the math doesn't add up, because we see houses going up everywhere. I see Ridgeline going up, I see, the new apartments going down.
Yeah,
I
100%. I'm working my tail off to make that happen. And somebody said we don't need more apartments. You know when we don't need more apartments? When we don't need more housing? Because the banks will finance them, and the investors will build them. And when we don't need them is when the landlord says, I've got vacancy. I need to lower my rents to get people in, and then we win. We win.
Yeah, find somewhere else.
Yeah.
They find somewhere else. You have them going up all over.
That location is the most prime location, maybe in the United States. Maybe in the United States.
A lot of people said it's a gem. You can't replace it. And I don't think it's it doesn't fit. I looked at that video and it's like Jones found Greepy. I mean, that does not.
I appreciate your perspective. I appreciate your perspective. Anybody else?
Kim Peterson, 208 Bancroft Plaza. Thanks for the time. I know you guys got this is tough. I mean, we're pretty emotional about everything in this town, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to us. And also, Tanner, back here, anybody from Edison needs golf clubs. I give away hundreds and hundreds of cents a year. They can call me up. You know, I'll take you to the list. Just so you know, it doesn't matter. But I'm here selfishly because of golf, because of the golf course. At one time, not to brag, I might have been the face of golf in this town. I won a lot of tournaments, and I just think it's a great place. And I just see what that course meant to me, and people talk about Westwood not being, well, investors have went to Harris to try to build a driving range, try to do things on Westwood, and they shot it down, so they don't want to develop that land. So, because they know there's something going on there. But the fact is that this property, or the golf course, was a gift to all of us, everybody here in this town. So I think the people of Council Bluffs should be the ones to make the decision if they want to give that gift away. Not that you guys don't have a tough job, but it's a gift. You know what I mean? The Dodge House is a gift. Are we going to make that apartments? Because we need apartments. Of course we're not. We're not stupid. We're not going to do that. But as a selfish, homegrown boy that just loves that golf course, knows everything about it, I'm all for development. I'm all for this town is booming. You know what I mean? But the fact is that this gift is a gift for all of us. You guys should think really hard about letting the city decide if this gift should be given away. Because it was a gift. I just think that we need this place. Fox Run or whatever, these places are not, they're not Dodge Park. They'll never be Dodge Park. And it's a shame that someone his age will have to go to the Hilton Golf Course to walk because they don't want to pay for a car. They just choose to walk. Dodge fits that need. We have a lot of needs in this town, but that fits a lot of needs for Omaha people too. And I was heard say, well, look at all the license plates in Omaha. Well, because they know. If we want to discourage Omaha traffic with the casinos, would they want to discourage people from Nebraska coming? I doubt it. I think they would go raise holy heck if they could have Nebraska clientele. We can promote Warhorse to get the people from Omaha to stay there, but we're not stupid. We enjoy their money. Dodge Park wants their money also. So I thank you for your time. I have a tough decision, but remember, it was a gift.
Thanks, David. Anybody else?
14th Fifth Avenue. Going back to what you said about it being a gift for the Dodge family, it's just, to me, it's disrespectful that we would even consider selling something that was a gift from the greatest man that ever lived in this city. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Brian Christensen, 17997 Vista Lane. This is my first time ever being here. I just want you guys to know that when you guys vote on this is something bigger than, just another step forward. This should be the end of it. It was gifted to us by Mr. Dodge, General Dodge, for us to take care of and to keep it. That should be it.
Thank you. General Dodge gave us 40 acres, 400 foot wide, a mile and a half long, next to the river where they plan to put the Union Pacific Bridge. The golf course is about 130 some acres, so the 40 acres came from Dodge. Some acreages came from a gentleman named Ben Mark, which he gave for $1. And then the city of Council Bluffs used eminent domain to acquire the land from other people that own the land down there. I've talked to Nate Dodge, I think he's the 5th in line. I'll be honest with you, I don't think he was thrilled to hear about it, but he said he wouldn't oppose development. He would respectfully ask that we remember his family when we do the development. So it's not that we've ignored it and that we're ignoring the gift, and we appreciate the fact they did it, but again, 40 acres of the 130 some actually was gifted to the city by Grenville Dodge after his brother died in 1911, asking that the city build a levee along the Missouri River, put a boulevard on top of that levee, and name it Nathan P. Dodge Boulevard. And you can laugh, Randy, but it's the story. It's a true story. So, that's where the gift came from.
Yeah.
Mayor, can you clarify something?
That park is ours, though.
It is the city council, you're correct.
Can you clarify for something for me? So you said you talked to General Dodge's descendant?
Yep.
And he's not?
No, Nathan Dodge.
Nathan.
Who is Grenville Dodge's great nephew.
Descendant, right.
The real estate guy?
Yeah.
And he's not thrilled with it, but would be okay?
I want to be honest, because I've never been dishonest in this job, and I know people would disagree with that, but I want to be honest. If anything, brutally honest. And but I called Nate Dodge, and I said, Nate, I want to let you know what we're considering. I'd like your feedback. I don't want to misquote him, but he said, we have a long family legacy in the area, and we have many places named after the family. And they got Dodge Park in North Omaha, they got Dodge Street, the Dodge House, and he said it was a gift from the family. I'm not opposed to development. I would like you to consider some naming opportunity when and if you develop it.
Okay, thank you.
But like I said, he wasn't jumping up and down saying, yeah, get rid of the Dodge Park.
No, I had a conversation with somebody else who said that they were all for it.
We don't usually
That's
do
why
it,
I
Randy,
wanted
but-
the clarification.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm
Just
sorry
leave it
there,
right
I
there.
totally agree with you, but when I look at it, it was a two-way contract, not just a one-way contract from the Dodge family to the city of Council
It was
Bluffs.
a two-way contract.
And there were several.
The city took months to decide whether or not they wanted to approve the conditions to build the levee.
Yeah.
With the,
And then they accepted the conditions, and It's been undeveloped for all these years. If Iowa DOT hadn't pushed 480 through there, Playland Park might still be there. But my concern is on this, on the other side of the contract are possibly descendants of the original people from the city of Council Bluffs that signed that contract. So maybe they ought to be contacted also, not just the Dodge family, because that's been carried down for years.
Well, I think that those people would be like the city council representatives of the city, representatives of the park board at the time.
Or this audience.
I think the name of the guy from the park board was Graham, that represented the park board at the time. But city legal, because we looked at it when they did the Broadmoor subdivision, which is very successful, contrary to inaccurate information that's been posted. City Attorney Dick Wade looked at it, and Iowa law does not allow deed restrictions after 21 years.
I don't have the code in front of me right now, but it's called the Marketable Title Act in Iowa, and it essentially cleans up reversionary interest such as this over a period of time.
So reversionary meaning the land would revert back to somebody if certain conditions weren't met. Anybody else wishing to address council? Seeing none, we already have a motion. Is there discussion from the council?
I'm sure. I need to use the restroom.
Yeah.
If we can wait, I would like to hear it.
What time? Yeah, 1001?
Yeah, from the council for sure. I would like to.
Anybody else wants to take a break? We'll take a little break here. Twice in 1 week is also on track.
I'm not opposed to it, but I want to be able to not have to vote for as a candidate. And there's something called cumulative vote. So if I get to cast all 3 votes for myself or another one, instead of rendering the electorate I guess technically I'm not my second state police That's the one of the criteria, and I got 5%, and now it's 10%, and I got
all right, we're gonna start running to get going. It's going to be some out there. Nice to meet you. We want to get you home in a reasonable time. So. Anyone from the council? I believe we're done with public hearing, close that, and then take input from the council.
I would like to just ask council to deal, in fact, there was a lot of gaslighting and misinformation that was out in the public on social media and all of that. Nothing has been a surprise to this council. The city has come to us, our very first meeting that I had on this council, first of all, we were talking about people living in the city, not having housing, and I said then, we haven't done enough to get people to live here in Council Bluffs. A lot of you didn't agree with me, but that's fine. I ran on density from the very start on city council. Density was my platform, and then we needed to build up, not out. We're urban sprawling, and it costs us a lot of money. Thirdly, the second meeting I believe we had, we appointed Chris Peterson to Iowa West Foundation Board. So we had representation on this board as these plans came forward over the years. That we started talking about this 4 years ago on this council. We knew it was there. When Jill ran, she sat down with me beforehand. I told her firsthand that Dodge Park was part of the conversation of going forward. You knew it.
I met with you, but as the newest person on the city council, I met with every single department head, and not one of them told me that this was on the table, or that a master, or that a proposal was being created, or that somebody from the council was on board to review this.
The Dodge Park was part of the conversation.
Jill is probably 100% right, because
we talked about the streetcar, we talked about Manawa, we talked about building out north of Playland Park, we talked about all kinds of things, not this. So this was a complete surprise.
We talked to the city council.
23, right after.
November 23 with Jill.
Yes, I'm not saying we were here for that conversation. What I'm saying before you ran.
In the room because it was.
Right, but to say that it wasn't a surprise, this is a complete surprise to me, but this came up.
Before you ran, you sat in my house, and I specifically told you that Dodge Park was part of a conversation of the future of this city.
Yeah.
Yes.
You did, but you couldn't share any plans with me, and when I met with the department chair and with the mayor,
I didn't have any plans. We had a conceptual drawing that came to us about 3 weeks ago when I was in heart surgery.
Just again, to clear the timeline, the plans that we have that are conceptual to ascertain the cost of infrastructure versus the potential tax revenue, and I know people say, well, what if that tax revenue is not right? It's 22 million. What if it's half right? Because we make, and it's not all revenue gain, but we make less than 34,000 on the golf course. If it's half right, that's 11 million. If it's a quarter right, it's 5.5. If it's a tenth right, it's so positive. So, but again, the plan that we had was delivered April 1st. And so nobody saw that plan until the city council saw it. And the idea of the plan was to say, we've done some investigation, we believe it's economically feasible, do you want us to go further? And that's all it is. There's a lot more work to do. I know you're concerned. We didn't have open meeting charrettes. There's no sense in having those if it wasn't economically feasible. Now we have it. We want to start doing master planning, open meetings, citizen contribution, those types of things going forward. That just started April 1st. The discussion in 2023
was an executive session.
Yeah, was an executive session.
So I knew nothing about it.
No, I didn't.
You did.
I didn't say that you didn't know. What I am saying is this council, majority, and
that's the key. Thank you.
I think on the committee part, I am a part of the committee. It's the Racing Gaming Committee, so if I'm on the golf course committee, I've missed all emails. I was invited to the did have the flu. So if I was on that committee, I'm sorry, because I have not participated. I've been a terrible committee member. And I'm on another Iowa West committee, so that's news to me.
Yeah, there was no golf course committee, it was the committee that you missed.
I'll say that. I mean, it's one that you came to that, or we're coming to that. So, we've heard from a lot of people, a lot of different things on both sides of this, not just tonight. This has been ongoing. We've all received emails for and against, phone calls, text messages. It's been the subject of many of much of our time for all of us over the last while. We did, two years ago, request that we get this conceptual. Again, like I said before, it's a peg that allows us to see what could be possible, more or less, one way or the other. A lot of the conversation tonight is circled around what is planned for that space. And what we're talking about tonight isn't any real plan. There is no real plan. That the formation of a plan or a master plan for that matter would be something that would be open to public and we can take public input on, and that would be down the road. All we were looking at is this evening is effectively, if we decide as a council, as elected officials of our constituency, that in the event someone were to put together a plan, we would entertain whatever it is that they bring to the table. In the event they bring to us a terrible plan, we do not have to accept anything at all. Everything that would be done in regard to anything would have to come back through council. And we had a slight discussion at study session and we presented a deal that would be an altered resolution to conduct a master plan development for this. That's a route we can go. No matter how it works out, we will have to create a master plan. And if we decide to go that route, in the event we do, then we would talk with the public. And this whole development can't all be high-rise apartments. That's not going to happen. That wouldn't facilitate the need. That would be a terrible use, waste of space. The biggest thing here for us is to see it, as many of you said, both for and against. This is an amazing gem of an opportunity for us. It's an amazing gem of a piece of land to be used for many things. We could yet continue to have some sort of executive golf course. All of those things are possible if we put together a master plan. We could retain 40 acres of green space as was gifted by the Dodge County, should we want to. That is all what the process of the public input on a master plan would be. What we're here to discuss tonight in this piece of it is just saying that in the event that someone would want to put forth the time, money, and effort, which means there's going to have to be, you talk for engineering, that would have to definitely happen. Obviously, none of us want to jump into a rather large development without all the ins and outs. We're not that far in this process yet. Where we're at in this process right now, and it's again something we've been working to for a while, is to say, hey, if you'll go spend the money and the effort to do the due diligence, because we need to see it all, because you're correct, it is our city's resource, it is for our kids, it is something that we need to consider in the long run. We do have lots of developments going on around this town. We're doing anything and everything we can to try and make the city better for anyone and everyone that lives here and future generations. What this tonight that we are discussing, all it does is it gets us to the next step to say, hey, we can put it out, someone can bring us plans, we can do an RFP and see what comes to us. With that information, with that due diligence, then we can make a decision. If someone comes and says, hey, I can increase your income as a city, your general fund, by 33% possibly, plus or minus, time value of money for all we know, $22 million, that is possible, which is just again, a penny mark, could be much higher, could be much lower. We don't do our job if we don't listen to at least all of the sides of the story as we did tonight. We don't have all the facts because we're very early on in this process. We haven't done all of the things that we've done to get to the end of this. But we have to do our job, We have to listen to what could be possible. Many of the folks that spoke tonight are in a great position, and they have the luxury of saying we should not develop anything anywhere. There's lots of content. You see how people talking about the apartments are bad, this is bad. Again, we're trying as a council and as a city to do everything we can to help make Council Bluffs better. We're not selling the golf course at this point. We're saying we're open to having an open conversation. And tonight's conversation was extremely good. It was great to hear from both sides. It was great to have this many people vested and interested in what goes on in Council Bluffs' future. I wish we could have this much effort in some of the other things that we do. When it's all said and done, we all as a council, as elected officials of a constituency here, have folks that we have to answer to, both for and against. And when it all comes back around, whatever comes up will have to come through council, and there's many pieces of this that are greatly involved the public. There's been a lot of conversation lately that says that this has all been done behind closed doors. What's been done is really nothing. Nothing has happened at this point. The only thing that has happened so far is we've had a conversation to say, is this plausible? Does this work? Could it pay for itself? Could it be helpful to us? And I think the numbers say that it's something we really need to explore. We need to have someone do the due diligence. Someone needs to come in with legitimate, not just, and I'm sure, sir, you did a great job when you were working, but someone comes in and has a full plan with all the geological information, all of the due diligence of what we have to bring in. Is it plausible? What does that look like to the surrounding properties? How does that rain retention? How does it work with the Corps of Engineers? Everyone is correct. You are all 100% correct that all that would have to happen should we ever do anything. All we're saying at this point in tonight's vote and tonight's resolution is that we be willing to come to the table to have a conversation with someone that wants to go through all of the effort and put forth all of the time, the money, do the due diligence, bring up the studies. What was put in the newspaper, what was put together by the Iowa West Foundation, we don't have to stick to any of that. We can do something entirely different. That was, again, just an exercise by them at our request to see if it was plausible. We could go more dense, we could go less dense. In the event we decide from there, like I said before, to go in a less dense manner and put more single-family homes or zero-entry homes because we don't think the idea of basements is a good idea, that is wonderful. Again, we could also have the conversation to keep a 9-hole golf course or open Westwood back up, leave that, let the schools use that, let the community use that, and then continue on, rename that, rename Westwood. All of these conversations can happen. The beauty of this possibility is that it puts Iowa first, it puts Council Bluffs residents, it puts you guys working through us and together with us and the development folks in the city to decide what is best for Council Bluffs and what we decide what we want to do, irrelevant to what Omaha decides to do. Many folks brought up the streetcar situation and how that was talked about at some point. Everything that was done in that thing that was put in the newspaper was designed in a manner that in the event there would be a streetcar at some point in time, it could be integrated in. But it was done with the intent of a car-first community because that's what Council Bluffs is. We cannot guarantee that the federal government's going to give us $150 million for a bridge. That's the only way we would be able to afford to do anything in that realm. That's its own separate issue, and judging from the things at the federal government level, I don't see that the Federal Transit Authority is going to have $155 million to give us for that on account of everything that's been being cut lately. If it does, it does. We need to proceed without that and not worry about it. If that comes to fruition, that comes to fruition. We can talk about it at that time. This is totally and separately from that in its entirety. We are lucky on our side that we get to watch Omaha do what they do with that and then make the decision when that comes up, if it comes up. But like I stated, I don't know if that even comes up. All we're doing here again tonight is trying to take a serious look at anything and everything, the numbers that have been provided to us, giving a nod to put out a possible RFP at some point, and to form a master plan, to have public meetings, to put together, and we can structure things however we want. We can put together a committee of of shareholders in the community to try and figure out what the best way to have a master plan is. Having a master plan or building a master plan involves nights like tonight, and I know everyone's here late, and I'm sorry for that, and I don't mean to keep you here any longer, but this discourse is great for us to go forward. Getting everyone's opinion, everyone's buy-in. It does, as someone stated, people are affected, from small children up to, senior citizens. Everyone uses all of the parks for different reasons, and everyone has different capacities and abilities to do so. In tonight's plan, I view it, and this is me, and that's why I wanted to hear everyone speak. That's why I made the motion. Steve seconded. I think we need to let this go to the next step. Have the public meetings like we talked about. Everyone's been asking for. That's where I stand on it, I guess.
That's where I'm at also. This vote tonight is just the next step in about 30 steps or 40 steps and a lot of community. And we have to deal in fact. And what I truly like about this opportunity is most of our developments have happened on the edge of our town and in other school districts, either Underwood, Trainer, or the central districts. That's where the majority of our developments have taken place. And so Council Bluffs as a whole, we're paying much more in school tax than those other districts because we're landlocked, as Dr. Morello said. This is an opportunity for a large development which is going to bring could bring millions of dollars, and it's an opportunity to help our school district function. The school district gets the majority of the taxes that would come off of that property, and that's fact. Those are facts. The other thing, like I was trying to say, nobody tried to put anything under the table. This is not a done deal. It can be refused along the line many, many times, and there's going to be a lot more time for the input now. Tonight's vote is to move it into surplus so we can continue studying and see if it even materializes from the conceptual drawing that they project that we would get out of the money, out of the properties. And it would be a disservice after this council asked the mayor and the city to go to Iowa West to pay for this. We asked them to do it. And so I believe, and in my opinion, we need to go forward tonight, vote for the future of Council Bluffs, study this more. And before we get too far in this thing, we need to look also at the amendment that was brought to us earlier. But I think, in my opinion, let's not stop educating ourselves, because this is going to be a decision that's going to affect us 50 years from now, whether we do it or we don't do it. It's going to affect us 50 years from now. And so we have to be thinking long term. Thank you.
Well, I got a lot of information, I'll be honest with you. We talk about Dodge Riverside numbers. I got these numbers from Brandon Garrett, just so everybody knows. Fiscal year 2021, we had a deficit. The golf course lost $124,000 with a capital expenditure of $208,000 that year. 22, it lost $67,000 with a capital expenditure of $140,000. In fiscal year 23, it profited $105,000, and these are round numbers, it gets billed down, like $105,588, with no capital expense that year. In 24, it profited $17,786 with a $16,000 capital expense, and the latest numbers that I got was from January 31st of 2025, it was profitable at $39,259.
Those numbers are right for those out in the audience who aren't following that capital expenditure Roger's talking about was the irrigation expense put in there. So the actual operating revenue of the golf course made money, but when you net off the cost of
fee and expenses and everything. So those are real numbers. As Matt said, I was not in favor when we originally did this. And when this came about 6 to 8 weeks ago, more to the public, leagues started shopping around, employees of landscape started shopping around, different outings are going to different golf courses and shopping around, and that 100% will drive down the revenue of the golf. In the next,
Can I just say one?
You can, I'm sorry. We can talk afterwards. In the next 3 to 5 years, this council has approved and over 2,000 apartments, multifamily apartments coming into Council Bluffs. Yeah, well, from 2023 to up to 2027, 28, depending on when construction gets done.
About 1,800 under construction, and
I got it.
some still being permitted, isn't it?
So in 2023, the Cohen Building downtown here at 530 West Broadway was 17 units. It was completed in 2023. There's 17 dwelling units. That project got 10 years of 100% exemption on the new increment, and the city awarded that project $150,000 of ARPA money. So that's 17 units. Black Squirrel Flats, which is short-term rentals down on 12th Ave between South 34th Street and 25th Street, got urban rebate, 10 years, 100% exemption on the new increment, which new increment is anything above where it was when we started the project. That's 20 units. That's completed. That's more short-term rentals. The Archive, market rate, it's the old post office. Downtown got urban rebate and HDP funds, which is the housing funds that City Council Bluffs with ARPA and our West Foundation money put in. They also got 10 years, 100% exemption on new increment. That's 53 apartment complexes or dwellings. That should be completed today, I think.
It's done.
And so that's 90
And leasing.
90 additional units. Treehouse, which is down on 34th and 1st Avenue. They got TIF. There's multiple phases. Minimum assessment of $13.8 million with a 15-year rebate of 3 years at 95%, 5 years at 85%, 2 years at 80%, and $1.5 million of HDP grant from our housing fund. That's 224 units to be completed up to 2029, depending on the phase. There's three phases. That will have a maximum rebate with the TIF money of $10 million. Ridgeline, beautiful new apartments of Valley View, also got TIF, 14 years, TIF, minimum assessment of $10 million, 14-year rebate up to $2 million. I was informed today from Courtney, the Community Development Director, that one is assessed higher than the minimum assessment and will get paid back on the TIF earlier than expected. That's 100 units in those three buildings down there on Valley View originally. To be completed hopefully by the end of the year, all three of them. Broadmoor, down at River's Edge, minimum assessment of $8.5 million, 16-year, 65% rebate. That's 50 units under construction today. If you drive down there, it's going vertical. That'll have completed in 2026. South Point, that's at Council Point Road and Best Memorial Highway. They got urban rebate, 10 years, 100% tax exemption on any new increment. That's 186 units in 2020, to be completed in 2026. Union at Bluffs Run, that is affordable at 60% of the median family income. on North 27th Street and west of South 19th Street. They got 15-year TIF, 100% rebate, up to 10 million with no minimum assessment. There's 192 units going there to be completed in 2027. Those are all under construction today. Perry Reed, which is out at Whispering Oaks, which was Jerry Torzon. Perry Reed construction. Perry Reed Properties is doing the apartments at Whispering Oaks. That's at Greenview and Franklin. Urban Rewrite and HDP funds, 10 years, 100% exemption on new increment, and $750,000 in home funds from the City Council of Bluffs and Westmont.
All Urban Rewrite is 10 years.
150 units to be completed in 2027. We have Cornerstone, which is affordable housing, 60% of the median family income, 35th Avenue Power Drive, that's out by Sam's Club. That development agreement has been approved. We have not negotiated any terms. That's 280 units. Cornerstone, that is Cornerstone. Volker, which is affordable at First Avenue and 22nd Street, is 45 units to be completed in 2027. And then we have approved developers for spin lofts at 32nd Avenue and South Expressway. Urban Rewrite, 10 years, 100% exemption. That's 45 units. Broadmoor, 2024 River's Edge, is 91 units. That's a new apartment complex on River's Edge to be completed in 2027. Lockwood at 30th and First Avenue, 264 units to be completed in 2027. And then the Hop development, which was on the council's packet tonight, affordable housing, 80% of the median family income at 28th and First Avenue. That's 89 units for a total of 1,806 units. If you include by the roundabout, there's another 200 there. So you've got 2,000 new dwellings or apartment complexes, mixed use, going in the next
That are worth
3 to 5
off to make happen.
Thanks for your effort.
You betcha. Happy to do it.
Not, yeah,
I'm just giving an idea. We work hard with Iowa West Foundation. There are 50 million housing unit shortage in the United States. It's a national crisis. Council Bluffs is doing something about it, and we ought to be proud about that, I think.
I'm not discounting it, I'm not touting it, I'm just telling people that we have 2,000 more apartment units coming in the next 3 to 5 years are completed from 2023 to 2029. The City Council Bluffs owns more land than anybody else. A lot of people don't know, and you were probably on council when that happened, we own the Bass Pro building. I don't think that's a great deal. I don't know if you would say it's a good deal today or
No,
not.
I'd say it's not a bad deal today. And so there's been talk about Bass Pro. We have an agreement with Bass Pro. They estimated 40 million in sales. No similar type businesses like that around here. Open up Cabela's, not at that time affiliated with Bass Pro, and then Bass Pro opened a place in Ankeny. Their sales never have met what they projected them to be. But they pay about, and I'm pulling these numbers out of the air, so they're not exactly, but they're close. They pay about $630,000 a year in rent to the city. And since we rent it to them, it's taxable. And so the city pays $611,000 in property taxes. Like, the gross number is 20,000 profit for the city, but then the city gets 41.5% of those property taxes, and so we pull in close to 250,000. Now, and again, my flaws being too honest, I could stop there and say, no, that's a bad deal. Well, the bad deal is it's not what they call a triple net lease. They pay the insurance, I believe, but we pay the taxes and the capital expenditure. And so at some point, the roof's gonna need to be replaced, or the HVAC, and so those expenses could easily turn that upside down. But so far, after 20 years, it has not lost any money.
Yeah, it about pays the property tax.
Yeah. Right. So, and then we get 41.5% of that back in property taxes.
We own the parking lot at Mac Ventures, which is the Westfield House. Obviously, we own several parks, Grand Park, Valley View Park, Ponson, Roberts. We've owned land under the viaduct since the early 90s, or the late 90s, early 2000s. That land has sat empty for entirely too long. I think that is something that should go on surplus. If I'm being honest. Under the viaduct, we own a ton of land.
Oh, under the north and south?
Yes, yeah, north and south under the viaduct. We own a ton of land. That is something I think should go surplus, if I'm being honest.
Which has development issues because it is actually in the floodplain and it is bifurcated or separated by rail. So that makes it difficult to sell.
We own the parking lot on Scott Street next to the building we talked about today.
I don't believe that's true.
It says it on the Popham website.
Just looking at the 712 owns the old school district building. I'm not sure what else is there. And then 712 also owns the 11 closed building.
I'm just looking at Popham.
Oh, the parking lot?
Yeah, the parking lot.
Just the parking lot you're saying?
No, just the parking lot. No, we own the parking lot.
Which we were leasing until December 31st when the tenant gave it back.
We own some property on Broadway across from Trainer State Bank. We own some property at 38th Street, behind 35th and West Broadway. South of Sonic Avenue, we've owned since 2015. There's a piece of property.
Those apartment buildings you just talked about.
Some of them, yeah. We've owned a property at 34th and 2nd Avenue since 2015. It's sitting empty today. From 2005 to 2015, we collected $286,000 in property taxes on that piece of property. But since 2015, we've owned it with no property taxes. 32nd and 12th Ave, we've owned since 2010. Go back to Parks, Old Kern, we own that. You think about the Mid-America Center we own, which loses money every year. The River's Edge Pavilion, where you can rent the space, has lost money since it's been put in. Today, Josh,
River's Edge Pavilion operating makes money, the flaws associated with the water feature cause it to lose money.
Which we just had that issue.
It's a park amenity that is comparable to fixing an irrigation system at Dodge Park.
So, and the gentleman said today about the trees, Council Bluffs proudly is a Tree City USA. And I just Googled Tree City USA Council Bluffs. It says, recognition is awarded to the Arbor Day Foundation, the Iowa Department of Natural Resources for the city's commitment to enhancing forest resources and demonstrating the value of trees. City Council Bluffs is actively involved in tree planting and care and encourage residents to participate in these efforts. But I didn't even think about that till the gentleman today said about the trees. I had a guy reach out to me and asked about Fairmont Park. You had a similar conversation with the gentleman. Fairmont Park is super hilly, and it would be tough to get infrastructure up there, but the gentleman said, well, I want first right refusal, and I want to be able to put a restaurant up there that overlooks all of Council Bluffs.
Yeah.
Similar to Dodge Park, right? That's the information, right? I don't know that, and maybe you can answer this, Matt, have we talked to the Corps of Engineers at all?
I don't think we're that far along. From a 10,000 foot perspective, it's no different than the north side of Broadway, and so it's conceivable. We have to, anything that's 500 foot back from the levy has to have core approval, and so that would be part of the process to meet with them. But at this point, our representative from the Corps, it's 3 to 5 years before they answer the phone. I hate to say that to you, but that's how it works anymore.
I understand.
So it'll take a while. So we haven't done that exercise because that's not where we are in the process.
I don't think we've had the golf course appraised today as is without infrastructure.
Not to that point.
I think that would be one of the first things we should have done is had it appraised to see what it's worth today with no infrastructure as it sits as is.
Well, in 30 years as a commercial banker, the value of the land would be dependent on the intended use. So we haven't got to that point yet to see what the intended use is.
So we've gone from surplus to transitional preserve to a master plan in the last 2 weeks. Brandon told Chris and I in your office that it has to go to surplus or developers
I thought
will
that
take
was
it.
right. That terminology Dick told us it wasn't. That is semantics. It didn't change anything. Included in that original resolution was to do a master plan. We felt that from conversations we'd had, the council wanted the master plan elevated, so that's what we did.
I don't know, you said that an 80% of the golfers are from Council Bluffs, something like that.
What I said was,
the number of them.
So back when I took over as mayor, the golf course consistently lost a lot of money. And under the city management, we kept track of where the golfers came from. At that point, according to Tom Potvin, about 20% of the golfers were Council Bluffs residents, 80% were Omaha residents. I didn't ask Landscapes Unlimited because I don't want to freak them out. So
I did ask them. They don't collect any demographics for the golf course. But a lot of golf courses around the country do. They ask where you're from, if you're visiting, things like that. I think that should be something Landscapes should do, to be honest with you. We talked about the high schools being able to use it. Maybe Whispering Woods or Old Fox Run could be able to support them. I don't think anybody, and you'll say it's not in the process yet, nobody has talked to any of the golf coaches maybe you've talked to Dr. Morello.
I've talked to the golf coaches, I've talked to Whispering Woods.
Yeah.
And again, just being honest, he said, and I can't remember the exact teams, but he does with a central trainer, felt that he could accommodate the teams of practice at Dodge, but it would take some scheduling.
I talked to a couple developers. Brandon said, the only way to get this done is people take us serious. I think a lot of developers have contingent things. They put out budgets, numbers, and they spend money all the time with projects that don't come to fruition. And I think that happens a lot. I would tell you, I think even land that the city's put out for RFP, we have 4 or 5 different people bid on it. They spend a significant amount of money and we only pick one or we pick none.
Depends on the housing type. So if there's affordable housing projects, many times are reliant on LIHTC money, which is low income housing tax credits that are distributed by the state, and those funds are awarded on an application basis. And so you're exactly right, a lot of times someone will say, I'll take that land, I want to do affordable houses, I'll put an option on it, the state doesn't give them LIHTC money, and so then they withdraw. But these would not be LIHTC quality homes, and so I don't know that that's how this process would go.
I think we can all agree we need more housing, we need the population to grow. We need affordable housing. I do not think that this...
And a lot of those units you're talking about are affordable. And I had people come to me and say, yeah, these are going to be $1,200, maybe $1,500. We have no idea what they're going to be. And we don't, but they said, he talk about affordable, and they say, well, these aren't affordable. But what happens is, somebody in a $1,300 unit moves into the $1,500 unit, and then somebody in the $1,000 unit moves into the $1,300 unit, and then somebody from an $800 unit moves into the $1,000 unit, and so there's a cascading effect that lifts people up and opens houses down below that are affordable. So it helps, even though they're not designated to be affordable.
I don't know that it's going to be affordable housing for the people in Council Bluffs.
No, I think the clerk said it wasn't affordable. I just said it would open up, as people move up into nicer apartments, it opens up affordable houses as they move out and up. All things that would make sense for us to study.
I continuously heard from multiple people that this was a done deal. And I assured them it wasn't. And I assured them that the City Council does, the council makes these decisions. Nobody else makes the decisions. As Matt said, Chris said, Steve said, we directed out of West to do the study. I was not in favor of that. 3 people were, and so it got done. I think potentially the golf course could be developed and it could be great for the City Council Bluffs. I don't think it's now, I don't think it's today. I think this conceptual master plan that we were provided has a lot of assumptions. Some of the assumptions are right here, right? The Harris Casino sells off the par 3 triangle parcel for development. That's an assumption. I don't know if you've talked to them or not. Well, that's in the documents we provided, it's an assumption.
Assumption for additional available square footage, but not included in that plan, I don't believe.
It says it is.
Well, it talks about it, but...
And then, it talks about the site builds out with programming and preferred concept at the pace we have assumed, which we don't know that that's going to happen. I think we've got a lot of land that's developable besides this. I think we have a lot of retail and commercial space that's not being utilized today. And to put more down there is something that I'm not in favor of today.
Again, I get it, it's conceptual, and the S.B. Friedman, who is experts in development financing, estimated $22 million in additional tax revenue that could help all of your property taxes. Now, what if they're wrong? And I said this earlier, what if it's half? Well, that's $10 million. That is 1/6 of what our property tax asking was last year. What if they're a quarter? That's $5.5 million in 30% of what our. So, yes, they may be wrong. Just the numbers have some flux in them. I can't deny that.
Well, the other thing is, as I said, we have over 2,000 new apartment complex coming in. This would be another 3,200 multifamily potential.
Yeah, like I say, in the perfect scenario, that landlord says, we've got vacancy, we need to lower our rents.
But if they spend so much to do it, they can't lower their rents. That's part of it.
Well, that's...
Somebody's talking about rental houses in the West End. Half the West End is rental houses. So if those landlords can't fill their houses, then they'll bring rents down, and that will cause
what I'm telling you is I don't think these apartments will be less than...
Yes, they will. Yes, they will. Even in new housing, if an apartment sits vacant, they don't just say, well, let's just let it sit vacant and not earn any money, but they say, we wanted to earn $1,200, let's see if we can rent it for $1,000 just to get somebody in there. So then the rents start coming down. So Yeah, I know you have concern because you expressed it before, that we may have too many rental houses. Like I say, that is the ultimate goal. If they build them, we get property tax revenue from the property. If they build too many of them, landlords are forced to lower their rents to get their units leased up so they can cash flow. It's just that simple. I've financed them for 30 years. Everybody can say that that's not the case, but that's exactly what happens. I'm going to go quick and then I'm going to get out of everybody's way, but
Chris and I haven't had a chance.
yeah, I know, and that's why I wanted to give you the last word, if that's all right.
Yeah, Chris hasn't spoken.
And neither have I, and so I'll do that. Currently, Council Bluffs has a housing shortage. The most recent census data shows owner-occupied vacancy at 0.6% owner-occupied and 1.7% rental vacancies. Statisticians believe that housing vacancy rents below 8% contribute to homelessness. This is because when housing demand exceeds housing supply, landlords can significantly increase their rents and still get tenants. As rents increase, some working residents on the fringes of the overall population no longer can afford to pay these higher rents and they get evicted, losing the ability to secure safe, affordable housing. Dodge Riverside is strategically located near downtown Council Bluffs and downtown Omaha, making it a very desirable location for potential future residential development. Significant interest among the local real estate development community has already occurred, and I believe this particular project will eventually attract interest from major regional real estate developers. If the city ultimately decides to issue a request for development proposal, any responses to that request will help to define the actual level of real estate developer interest. And that's all I have to say. And the floor is yours.
Chris, would you like to go?
I'll keep it short. Thanks for everybody for coming out tonight. I'd like to thank the city staff for all their hard work on this. It's a major decision. Council is moving forward. I appreciate all the calls, emails, texts. I've met a lot of new people. So it shows that the citizens still do care, whether they're for or against. Sometimes you're up here and you don't know if people care because you have nobody in the audience. Prior to me getting on council, I had reservations about this development from the downtown development concept I saw, with no ambition of being council at the time. But I started asking questions. I asked Roger a lot of questions before I got on council. We shared a lot of views on the city surplus and things like that. So there's been a lot of thought that's gone into this, and kind of where I'm at right now, I voted for the concept because I wanted the concept to come out and I wanted to roll it out to the people. I didn't want to make a decision weeks after. I wanted to hear what you guys had to thought, because so many times in other cities we hear it that they felt they were unheard. So the number one thing is I want to hear the citizens for or against. And that doesn't happen in 5-6 weeks, because there's some people that, as of yesterday, have no idea what's going on down there. And then they want to know. So we're still not educating. And every time we roll something out, we say, educate, let's educate the people. And I still think we fall short in getting it out to the masses. We can do better every single time we've talked about it. One of these things, like Roger said, we would love to hold on to the golf course for the rest of our lives. In the grand scheme of things, in reality, it's probably not going to happen, if you just look at the trends. But we don't need to be rushed into anything right now. It's going to be there, it's going to go up in value, but there's going to be continued conversation. So as of today, I am a no for now, but you need to hear that statement. I am a no for now. I'm not done having conversations with the city staff, the citizens, for and against, because this is a major decision, and I don't want to be on a runaway train that we can't undo. And I know we can undo things and they have to come to us, and I take what these two say very important. But that's just how I'm feeling at the present time, with just knowing you walk out that this isn't going to bed, okay? But keep educating yourselves. And I'm going to keep educating myself. I had a great conversation with the chief on Friday, put a whole new perspective on it. So that's where I'm at currently, and that's all I have to say for that.
few thoughts written down. First of all, again, thank you everybody for coming out. I'm gonna try to shorten this and not to overlap positives, like negatives on this project. But on top of the emails that City Hall's received, many people reached out to us directly via email that weren't copied onto the city office. Also Facebook, stopping us while we're out and about. There's a petition with 900 signatures out, over 900 signatures to say no to this. So as Councilman DeSalvo said earlier, this is a very emotional topic both ways, so we appreciate everybody coming out. I mentioned earlier I was shocked when this came up. The first time I heard about this was about 2 weeks before April when I heard Mr. Garrett was out showing the conceptual plans to different groups, and after several presentations, then it was presented to the council. I do believe that we are being rushed to this vote tonight, and I expressed my concerns about it being rushed, but here we are with it on the agenda tonight. There's so many different concerns I have about this project, on top of the amount of land that we own that Roger mentioned, or the amount of projects that are coming in. Few other concerns I have is no one has reached out to the Corps of Engineers. I called them, they called me back 48 hours later and said, no, nobody from the city has reached out about this project. The number of apartments being currently built, the uncertainty of the economy. We sell this property and then it sits empty, right? There's two things you can't make more of, blood and land. And so when we are gonna sell our property here in the city, we need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and moving forward. I also met with Chief James last week, and I told him I'm not against building. I'm against doing this right now, but in fact I'm in favor of building, and I'm in fact of using, I'm in strong favor of building, using those in either apprentice programs or skilled labor, and that's just how I feel. I'm not understanding why the city didn't hold community meetings before we got to this part. I'm not sure why we just had a presentation about tourism and getting people to come to our city, but in the case of the golf course, it's a bad thing that we have people from Omaha coming over and spending money in our town. I'm concerned that if we start to build or start to move towards doing this on the riverfront, that developers over on First Avenue are going to jump ship and say, hey, I'd rather build on the river than on First Avenue, and leaving First Avenue out there by itself. I'm really concerned that the streetcar seems to be tied to this in every which way. In fact, WWT did a piece on this about 2 weeks ago, and they quoted somebody from the city that their goal is to have a consultant hired by the summer to start looking at the streetcar. I'm concerned that moving forward, we were told that the only way to do this was to put it on a surplus. Then within the last 2 weeks, it was changed to a transitional preserve. And today now we're being told that there's a different way that we could do a new resolution. All of this combined tells me we should not be doing this at this point at this time. We as a city should not be in the business of building buildings or providing housing. Us voting no does not stop a developer from coming forward to us and offering a dollar amount for the land. Let them pay for the conceptual master plan. Let them bring us forward a plan if they want to build there. To quote the mayor earlier tonight, this might be the most valuable piece of land in America. So why are we the ones spending the money? Why are we asking Iowa West to spend the money when that money can be put into other community projects? Let somebody else come to us. And Councilman Gordon, you said earlier tonight when you were speaking, we asked Iowa West to pay for this, so we should move forward with it. So my last question is when is the right time to say no? If we don't say no right now and slow this down, when is the right time to say no?
If we don't get a price for the property.
All right, I think everybody's had, unless you have something else to say, let's go home and vote.
Yeah, I just want to.
So, for clarity, the resolution is the one as written.
Yeah.
Correct, okay.
Yeah, I mean, as everybody said, we sit here a lot on Monday nights and there's nobody here, except the officer in the back.
He's not here.
And sometimes they're on calls. We do appreciate the officers coming in. So to have this place filled is important to the city, it's important to city staff, everybody, and input. We're up here representing you. The entire town of Council Bluffs I will tell you, we had, the homeless conversation earlier today. We have this conversation. Joe, Steve, Chris, Matt, myself, Jill, the staff has the best interest of Council Bluffs in our hearts. I really, truly believe that. Whether it's a different vision or a different thought, nobody up here is not up here for the right reasons. And so I want everybody to know that. I think all of us respect everybody's opinion and thoughts, and we respect your opinions and thoughts. So I just want to put that out there before we...
I would like to just say one thing to the mayor and to Councilman Shulak. The next time I'm speaking, don't interrupt me. I have the floor, and I was talking, and I was interrupted as I was trying to clarify my position. And you pointed out that happening. And so, when I have the floor, don't interrupt me, please. That's what I would like to say.
Point will take.
Agree, don't make statements that conclude me in something that did not happen.
Well, let me ask you. You didn't come here.
So everybody's clear on the vote, what the resolution is. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Nay.
The resolution fails. All right.
Now we got applications and permits are canceled.
Motion to approve cancellations of permits.
Motion to approve 9A, B, and C.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Anyone from the audience want to talk? Seriously, you press 3 there? Any?
Can I just say this?
Yeah, you can.
Once again, Diane Story, 148 Ivy Drive. Just wanted to discuss a couple issues about, the use of Whispering Woods for the high schools. I was the high school coach for bowling.
Yeah, I know you.
When we lost our lightning bolt. And all of the high schools, along with Iowa Western, had the Thunder Bowl. I went from 5 days a week, being able to practice with my competitive team, to down to 3 to 2 Sundays because of competitions with all of them. And being able to make, and for those of you that aren't aware, I took my team to state 5 years in a row. We were 3rd place 1 year, my girls were 2nd place 1 year, and my boys took state. So in the time that I was there, I was able to do that even with 2 days a week. It was nearly impossible to get my kids there. And I'm TJ. So saying that that's going to be enough space, especially for the amount of kids they have, is going to be near impossible. That's all I wanted to let you guys know.
Congratulations on the teams.
Thank you.
Within 5 minutes, Wyatt Greenwood said that it would take some scheduling to make it happen.
Yes. Way scheduled.
All right, have a safe week, everyone. Thanks for doing that, everyone.
I'll take it back and listen to it.
I sit there every night after 10 o'clock.
Somebody's going to get killed. And I I said,
You have a great resource to help you read.
But the resources around that. If you tell me, if you make a square between 35th and 33rd.
I'm aware of all the resources. Been around here long.
We'll have about 60,000
Thank you so much. Look, and we got him in like full use sticks. Oh, I've never seen him in full.
Oh, really?
No, that's what I'm saying. Oh, okay.
I'll leave it 5 minutes. You were in the bathroom.
I know, I was taking it longer. I was squirming in that. I was squirming in that chair.
So we can log up.
Yeah, no, I'm very long time. Yes, I mean, sir.
got one?
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. It
She's
takes-
flying, you're
It takes
holding
forever for those lights to turn back on, so I apologize.
Oh, that's all right.
Do you need my flashlight?
Nope, I got a flashlight.
Mine's in my desk.
I got my own flashlight here.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine.